Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I am just going to start off with just a few comments. As many of you know, this is my first official meeting back off of maternity leave. Thank you. I appreciate the applause, but as many know, I don't like clapping or any noise through the rest of the meeting, but that's fine. Thank you. I do wish to thank the community for all of the well wishes and kind support as my family welcomed our dear boy Ewan into our hearts and our home. It's been an incredible experience so far, one that I hope that as I grow as a mother, that the experience and skills will shape me for the better as both a person as well as your mayor, and vice versa. I'd like to give a big thank you to my council colleagues here at the table. They've had to adapt, adjust, and move forward in my absence, and I greatly appreciate all of their efforts. Councillor Kevin Pearson was put into the hot seat early and unexpectedly in November due to pregnancy complications and took the district through to the end of the year. The gavel was then passed to Councillor Kerry Ray in January and February, and Councillor Rick Casper concluding in March. I would like to give special recognition to Councillor Ray, as January and February was both the start of a new year, a new budget cycle, the strategic plan, overseeing and completing our hiring process, and then transition of our new CAO. So it was a big load at that time. And speaking of, I'd like to give a warm welcome to our new corporate team, Ms. Teresa Sullivan, Brent Blackhall, Gabriel Joseph, Rob Howitt, and Amanda Irving. I look forward to working with all of you, and thank you very much for joining us here at the district. I would also give a thanks to our outgoing staff, Bonnie Sprinkling, Elizabeth Nelson, Michael Dillabaugh, and Tina Hansen. Well wishes, and thank you to all of you for your contributions to the district. Souk has incredible potential, and I believe that every member on our council, corporate team, and district staff has awesome talent, expertise, abilities, and is working to give their very best forward for our community, both today and for the future. And I'm very grateful to be a part of this team, and I'm excited about the weeks and months to come as we work together and realize our strategic plan. At the AVICC conference that was just this past weekend, our keynote address was from Chief Dr. Robert Joseph, the Chair of Reconciliation Canada. And in his keynote address, he advised us that reconciliation starts now, in this moment, in our homes, at our council table, and with each other. And while we cannot erase our past, we can learn from it and build calm, peaceful relations, a caring, inclusive society, and one with shared grace and prosperity. So with those guiding values, I look forward to serving you, and I thank everyone here for their contributions. Thank you. So on that note, as we approve tonight's agenda, there is an item of business. It's C2. It's correspondence from Rupert and Franny Yakeleshek regarding the Federal Bill of Environmental Rights. And when this matter came forward before with the Blue Dot Movement, there were a number of children in the audience that spoke to it. So I see a lot of young faces here, and I would just like to know if there are any young children here tonight to speak to this issue. Okay, so I'm correct in assuming you're all here for soccer. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. And I just ask because if there is an area where we do have some younger school-aged kids, I would just like to move it ahead on the agenda, but you're quite early. Councillor Casper?
Yes. I also have a suggestion that because of the number of people here tonight, that our item R1-3, Capital Region District Board Director Appointment, be moved forward to after the delegations section, which would be after D2.
Okay. Did you want to...
So I would so moved.
Move it before the public question and comment period? Okay. Yes. Seconded by Councillor Berger.
And if I just may speak to the purpose of that, because I think it's important. Over the past 2 weeks, that there's been a lot of public and comment period in regard to Council's decision on November 30th to make changes to the director of the CRD. That came at the request of former Chair Niels Jensen in November, and he had advised that I bring the matter forward to Council for their consideration. I passed that information on to Councillor Pearson, who was acting mayor at the time. At no time did council members take that position as though we were undermining the mayor's authority. It was requested that action be taken. Councillor Pearson, as acting mayor, directed consultations to other persons, including our former corporate officer. The decision was made with the greatest respect to the mayor by all council members. It was a unanimous decision, and in no way was there anything untoward about that decision. The decision had been actually on the books and approved by council for a 4-month period with no comment or questions from the council members that were providing all the district services while the mayor was in absence. There were no public comments from any members of the community in regard to those motions. It was very straightforward. I'm going to be fully supporting that the mayor be reinstated tonight, as was the discussion that occurred at that council meeting. And so I just want to make that abundantly clear so that people who may want to make some comments about this council's integrity or intentions regarding that motion, that they should perhaps be guarded, especially comments towards me, because I have to protect my 26 years of public life, and I feel strong about that. So I ask that the public please show some mutual consideration to all members here that we take our job seriously, and our decision was based on recommendations that were forthcoming, and also the fact that our duty to our provincial rules and regulations comes first, because that's how we operate in local government. So I want to thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Casper. All those then in favor of the agenda, moving R13 after D2. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Logan is opposed. Okay, carried. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to look at our next item of business is adoption of council and committee of the whole meeting minutes. We'll do them as a block, March 23rd and the special council meeting, and March 29th, regular council meeting. Any errors, omissions, comments, or questions regarding the minutes? Move receipt by Councillor Berger. Seconded by Councillor Logans. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item is the receipt of draft council committee minutes for information. March 17th, Sioux Community Center Advisory Committee. March 22nd, the Emergency Planning Committee. March 22nd, Sioux Fire Services Commission. March 23rd, Sioux Program for the Arts Spa Committee. Moved receipt by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Casper. Any errors, omissions, comments, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. Our next item of business are delegations. D1, we welcome Mr. Herb Haldane from the Sioux Community Association speaking on sports field. Please turn on the microphone, and we have 5 minutes for the delegations. Thank you.
Herb Haldane, 3118 Otter Point Road. The Community Association started in 1935, to give you some background, to help the town of Sioux achieve some amenity goals that were desperately needed to bring everyone together. Once formed, the group built a community hall for basketball and town gatherings. They purchased the Sioux Flats for All Sioux Day and other properties for future use like softball. The Community Association later gave land for the Sea Park complex that we have today and to build the museum complex where it exists. In 1980, they purchased land for the soccer fields and some softball diamonds. Later, Sioux became a municipality, but all softball and soccer needs have been supplied by the Community Association. In the mid-70s, the CRD built the arena and later the pool, but keep in mind that the taxpayer has always paid the bill for anything and everything at this complex. Today, the subsidy is $1.9 million annually, and soon there will be a fitness facility added at the cost of $1.5 million. Sea Park is a great addition to the community, and for many years has benefited from generous tax dollars. So today, I'm representing the Community Association, but I'm also representing soccer in the sense that we're looking for another $300,000 on top of the $400,000 that you've graciously given us from the fund from the field, I guess, bylaw you'd call it. But really what we need to do is try and come up with a way to get an all-weather field system. And I have a partner here named Andrew, who's going to put together something on the board for you real quick and to give you kind of a breakdown. Mike Hicks has agreed to give $300,000. He sent out a letter. We have the 400. We need another 300 allocated to come up with $1 million. We have a couple $100,000 in kind put together through the association, and at this point here, we're going to use the C-Park plan, and a couple members here sit on that board. So without any further ado, I'm going to put Andrew here, and he can kind of give you a breakdown on how we're going to do this. So thank you.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Quinn Young. I'm the one of the coaches of the silver medal winning U14 soccer boys team, of which one of them is back there, a little shy and red faced, so I won't bring him up here. You know, we had a great year this year, and unfortunately we didn't get to play a lot of the games that we were hoping to. I'm going to flip through a few slides here, and so my little quick history is we've been here for 5 years. My wife has been the past registrar for the club. She currently is the manager of the team that I coach, and 3 of our children play on the Souk Soccer Club. So I've been charged with help spearheading, bringing in some of the grants and also going after some of the gambling licenses, as well as working with the local business community to help secure donations of financial, material, and labor. And, you know, we've had a lot of very positive groups come forward, a lot of positive local businesses come forward. You know, companies and businesses like the Clarkson Construction Limited, who've come forward to say that they would volunteer to do the project management for the turf field. I mean, that's just absolutely huge. So, you know, we're really positive that with a combination of the Sun River allocation and the Souk gas tax, the CRD gas tax that's been put forward, the dollars that have been put forward in-kind donation and that we've raised over the last little while, that we're going to hit that $1.8 million and have a turf field that we can all be proud of to go and play and watch on. Laura's up next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Lockhart, current VP of Souk Soccer Club, player and a coach. And every year we spend at least $10,000 on renting turf in West Hills for 1 4-hour slot a week. It's not enough to accommodate all of our teams, and it's very expensive. We also put out about $2,500 a year in gym rentals during the wet season. And this money could easily be just moved over to help maintain the turf, and hopefully in conjunction with School District 62 and C-Park. We are losing kids to the newer schools in Langford with better sports programs. We're losing kids to other soccer clubs every year. We have great things in store for the next season, with the acquisition of a new technical director to help with our development programs, including Souk Soccer's very own soccer academy, and implementing Euro soccer programs for our varied age groups. As a player and a coach, I know having a turf field is imperative for those programs to be successful. We can guarantee practice time every week for every team. We can guarantee games. All of the Lower Island Soccer Association supports Souk needing a turf, and we want to get this going sooner rather than later. Souk needs this, and the time is now. We ask that the Souk Council come on board to be a part of a legacy we will leave for our kids now and for kids in the future. Thank you. Up next.
The delegation time limit is up. Is council comfortable with the delegation completing? Okay. Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank
Please
you.
go
Next
ahead.
up is Kelly from the Hunter. I always say Taylor.
That's okay.
Kelly Hunter from Soccer Academy.
Hello, council members. My name is Kelly Hunter, and I'm the Soccer Academy coach and coordinator. And I've been a coach and teacher for 15 years here in Souk at EMCS. And I'm just here to propose that I think a turf field is really needed here at the school for your youth in Souk, the high schools, the elementary schools, not only for soccer, but for football, for field hockey, for rugby. We're losing a lot of kids going into the other communities. This is one of the only communities that doesn't have a turf field. And I did a master's project on turf field and the value of having a turf field in your community. And one thing is there's a lot of research that says there's a correlation between being active and high academic standards. And one thing I just wanted to, to boost the idea for this turf field is that the Fraser report stated that, where are my glasses here? Hang on. Where am I here? Sorry. So EMCS, according to the Fraser Institute, is ranked 236 out of 261 in the BC schools on academic achievement. The only other high school in our district, Belmont, is ranked 175 out of 261. Belmont has access to artificial turf field, which uses for its football and soccer programs, and there's lots of pride at this school due to, in large part, to its very successful football program. While EMCS sports participation enrollment is at 9.5%, the average in BC is 26.5% for kids being active in school sports. And there's lots of research to back up that academic standards, high standards, and athleticism is a correlation between the sports and academics. And that I have a lot of research on that. And the last thing I want to state, there's lots of people that are against it because the cost of it, but synthetic turf fields provide a number of environmental benefits that can be realized through the elimination of pesticides, fertilizer, watering practices, organic waste, and noxious fumes associated with the maintenance of natural turf fields. New technologies in synthetic turf provide the feeling of grass and incorporate shock pads in these base layers to absorb impacts and reduce sports-related injuries. I don't want to take up any more time, but I also want to mention that our school enrollment is lower since 2008 by about 8% in kids. And I think what's happening is coaches and parents and kids are leaving the Sioux community to play. They live here, but they're leaving your community to go play in other communities, and I don't think that's right. Thank you.
Mayor, members of council, Kenneth Scanavan, 6220 Calvert Road. I'm here to support the project down at the Flats, not the Flats, but on Sioux River Road. I was part of the group 35 years ago that put that field in. Sad to say I'm not old now, but nevertheless I am. And in 37 years that I've been here, we see all the kids and all the young people playing ball, the older people now that play ball. Right now, we're housing approximately 1,000 people at the field year-round. 1,000 people playing ball, kids playing soccer. And in all that time that we've been there, and I've been coaching there for over 35 years, and it used to be the president of Sioux Soccer at one time, never once has the community association come to a council and asked for anything, ever. We're growing now. We're at the point now where we're upwards of getting close to 11,000 people. What I just stated here with the 1,000 people that are using that park, that's 10% of our population that are there every day of the year, give or take different numbers. Tournaments are hosted down there. We get the people coming in. With the turf field, we're going to be able to put those tournaments on. Our kids aren't going to miss out because we're looking at about approximately 46 to 48 inches of rain a year here, right at that area, as opposed to Colwood, 30 inches, Gordon Head, 22 inches. So you can see the difference. All those places, Saanich has 5 now, and I was part and parcel at that time. My boy left here to play there because he needed a better caliber, and he went on to play there, and I was part and parcel of putting that first field in at Hampton Park. And what a difference it made for them, the kids that go there and play, the academies they put on. And I think that would be remiss for this council not to give this a hard look of the value that it's going to bring to the community. I know that there's been lots of talk that maybe to put it into the Sun River area, but that wouldn't work because of the fact that you can't hold a tournament with one field. You have to have 4. And now we can utilize the high school soccer field if we need to for overflow. It's the ideal location. The lights are there for the practice fields, and we're ready to go. And everything that's done down there has been done by labor. Guys like myself and other young men and women that are still doing it today to look after it. And, in closing, I would just say to members of Mayor and Council, give it a hard look, because it's a well-worth project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any?
Last topic, very, very brief.
You're part of the delegation?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Tim Satterford. I'm the longest-serving coach in Souk. I've been actually coaching in the club for 28 years. I probably coached 1,000 games, both kids, adults, and I've been observing those fields. I'm the idiot that you sometimes see lining the fields during the week, and I know what the condition there is. It's becoming so hard to maintain this. We need your help. We need the field desperately. If we're going to go ahead, we need this. Apart from anything else, we've lost the best part of 9 weekends this year, which is 100 games. That's not just our kids not getting the opportunity, but it's also 100 teams that aren't coming into Souk, 100 teams that aren't spending their money in our stores, 100 teams that aren't buying our gas or having lunch at our restaurants. This is essential for us. We desperately, desperately need us, and I'm just pleading to you, please help us. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes your delegation. Is that right? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is strictly for the delegation. Okay. Sorry, the delegation is specific. Okay. Well, it's just the delegation has spoken, so I'm going to leave it at that. I think this is very timely in light of us receiving notice that the grant application was unfortunately not successful. And I think awareness of the soccer fields and the like really grew with the horseshoes, I believe. So that's, and that is really where we learned more about the turf fields. So I'm very thankful for your timing in terms of bringing this together. So I'd like to open it to members of council. Council Berger?
Yes, thank you. I just want to follow up on what I spoke about last week at council when I brought the motion forward to use the funds that we had in the Playing Field Reserve Fund. So just again to touch base on what the delegation gave, at a minimum there's roughly 10 games on a rainy weekend, 10 games that are canceled. That's 340 kids from across the region that can't play. Half of those kids live in Souk. So that's just to give you an idea on just one weekend is 340 kids. I also wanted to touch on the letter that we all received from Director Hicks. Now, what he's done on the CRD is he's asked for permission from the CRD board, and he's received that permission to allocate $300,000 from his gas tax. The hitch to that, though, is that he's asked that Souk pay the other 75%. So he worked on a population split, which is how the CPARC funding model works. So CPARC is funded 25% through the CRD, 75% through Souk. So last week I made a motion, and thank you very much for voting all for it, to allocate $400,000 to go towards a turf field in Souk. So we're still looking for the other 300 in order to get the 300 from Mr. Hicks. So I've given all of you a little bit of homework I did on our own municipal budget. So you have the budget in front of you, and what I've highlighted is our Community Works Reserve Fund, which is our gas tax fund. And I did the math to show you that if we spent $300,000, what it would look like over the next 5 years in our financial plan. So just keep in mind, Council, that this also includes all of our capital items for the next 5 years. And as you can tell, there's a healthy balance that's still remaining. So I believe personally and wholeheartedly I'm in favor of supporting and making a motion, which I'm going to right now again. I'm going to make a motion that the District of Souk allocate $300,000 from the Community Gas Tax Reserve Fund towards the development of an artificial turf field and include it in our 5-year financial plan, as well as direct staff to proactively research any grants that could be applicable and help pay for any further expenditures with the artificial field.
Second.
Okay, so that was moved by Councillor Berger, seconded by Councillor Pearson. If we could speak to the motion, please. Any questions from council? I think the budget, as I understand it, is agreed to in principle, and we'll receive more information from the fire, so then this can be included in that and finalized when we receive the budget in a bylaw form. Would that be correct? Mr. Joseph?
I'll let Mr. Blackhall speak to that.
Okay, Mr. Blackhall.
Yes, I can add, if there's going to be an amendment, I could add it in, and then we'll just bring it forward with the bylaw.
Okay, for clarification then, the matter that, or the item that Councillor Berger, this is in reserves then. So these are funds that are currently sitting that haven't been allocated to any other item in the budget. It's a reserve, is that correct?
That's correct. There's currently 410,000 in the reserve, in the gas tax reserve, and we had planned to spend 274,000 this year, and we get approximately 520,000 each year. So.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
so the funds are there. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, any other comments or questions on the motion? Councillor Casper?
I just want to thank all the people who made the presentation, and they did a great job. So thank you.
Councillor Logans?
Thanks, everyone, for showing up and for the presentation. I will be supporting this motion, but I also want to remind Council not to forget in the budget as we go forward that we did make a commitment to the community for a community center as well. So while we're spending a huge portion of these funds on fields, which I think is excellent, again, we'll be supporting it, we do need to remember that we made that commitment as well.
I think that's where in Councillor Berger's motion, there's a comment to get staff to actively pursue any grants. So there may be something that's live that may be able to work with this field, or if not, towards our other commitment to the community hall as well, which is an ongoing project. Councillor Pearson, did you?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I will call the question on the motion then. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you to the delegation, and many thanks to everyone that appeared. If I'll just give a few minutes. Perhaps if anyone wanted to leave at this point before we go to the next delegation. Okay, I'd like to move back into our agenda. If I could have your attention, please. Please take your seats. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to move on to our second delegation this evening, item D2, Ms. Ellen Lures with the Sooke Fall Fair Canada 150. Welcome, Ms. Lures.
Thank you, Councillor and Mayor Tate, and thank you for coming back. Nice to have you back. If I could ask someone to hold this sign up on there. It's kind of tattered. It's been everywhere. This, and maybe even up on there so everyone can have a look. You can do that. Not right now. But maybe tape it on. I don't know. Sorry. Not very organized. Initially, the project that I was going to present tonight was going to be for the 150 grant to go along with the grant that Elita Pierce has brought forward to Council. And I just spoke with her this evening, and we find that the grant application would be too much to go with the 150 grant, but there are other opportunities. So I'm going to just bring forward some information about this. This sign was proposed to Council on February 11th, 2014. And the minutes of the regular meeting say Ellen Lure's Arts and Beautification Panel submitted drawings of the signage project, which is proposed to be located on Souk Road at Connie Road. Ms. Lure's advised that the sign will set the theme for Souk, Wild by Nature, and would include a carved sign holder and a digital sign that would display community events, such as soccer games as well, road closures, fire hazards, etc. There would be scenic photos in between ads, and the sign would minimize the amount of signage around the community, minimize volunteer time, and we would catch everyone from East Souk to Port Renfrew, including visitors to the area. Ms. Lewis read comments from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure on the digital sign, moved and seconded to support the Mayor's Advisory Panel on Arts and Beautification Sign Project, so that the panel can continue dialogue on the location, operation, maintenance, and cost of the sign. Carried unanimously. Now, just recently there was a correspondence November 20th from the Souk Lions Club. Councillor Parkinson provided an update to the Souk Lions Club proposal for a joint revitalization sign. And then there's a delegation came forward on February 9th, the Souk Lions Club to Gateway to Souk to propose a revitalization project with John Farmer and Godfrey Medhurst. And it was a proposal for a collaborative project with key community stakeholders, including South First Nation, District of Souk, Ministry of Transportation, community groups, and schools. At the council, again, here moved and seconded to support in principle the Souk Lions Club Gateway to Souk Revitalization Project and to direct staff to enter into discussions with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. The meeting before this one, Councillor Parkinson made the comments about Souk Lions Club proposal for a joint revitalization project. I did stand up and address council and say that there was this other sign that was on the books. And I looked in the minutes, and it's not in the minutes, but it is on your video, where it states that council, yes, we remember the sign, we remember the project, and would Councillor Parkinson please work with the Lions and Ms. Lures for this project? Now, I did meet with Rob Howitt in regard to this, and it seems like we're going two ways. This project here would encompass all of the community groups, for all the community events in Souk, whether it's Souk Fine Arts, whether it's Souk Fall Fair, whether it's a soccer game, whether it's the non-statutory items that the district has for meetings could be on there. Road closures if there's a fire or an accident on Souk Road, fire ratings, that sort of thing. And this is a community sign. It's to build on the community. I've already approached some people for wood and for carving, and the project at that time was around $30,000. What I'm asking, because I want to know to go forward with this or where we are, and whereas the council has advised two separate groups to work with staff to look at community signage, we're looking for clarification for staff to say, where do we go with this? We'd like to work together to go forward with this. When I just drove up right now, at the location that the signs are to go, I counted 14 signs in that area. And I was talking to different people just in the last couple of days about this sign and the issues that people are having with whether it's fine arts, whether it's Souk Harbor players putting up their signs, wind whipping it off, and those kind of things. And it takes so much volunteer time. It takes so much of our time to put up signs and to take them down. And it's a proliferation of signs. And that's why this sign project came forward. It's to help everyone, and it's for the whole community. So I'd hope that council would look at directing staff on having us all work together on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lures. Questions or comments from council regarding the sign project? Councillor Logans.
She's going. Oops, sorry. Come on back. I think you're so used to talking during public question and comment that you're not used to delegation where you're allowed to stay. Thank you for your presentation. I would love to see this, but I would love to see it if it's a community sign in a communal location, if we had a town square or someplace where you could sit and watch things go by. My concern is that with so much happening on the sign, it will be a distraction to drivers as you're going by in that location.
Yes, I'd like to comment to that. The location that we were looking at was across Connie Road at what we used to call Hail Marys. Right now there's a fire sign there, and I've been trying for a long time to find out who owns the property and to get in touch with them. That's what I was talking with Mr. Howard about, was where's the location, where could the location be? I agree with the proliferation of signs and distracted driving. And Highways has had suggested that if this was to be a Connie Road, if it was on the private property back from the road, it'd be fine. Another place they suggested was Sioux River Road. This sign would be, say it was Sioux Fine Arts. The sign would go up, Sioux Fine Arts, for 5 minutes. It's not flashing. It's not constant. And then it would give perhaps different things that go on at Sioux Fine Arts. Might show some art, might show some things that are happening at Sioux Fine Arts. And so it would be for a week of fine arts, or 2 weeks? I forget what fine arts. But anyway, it would just be for the event of fine arts. And then for the next event, same thing. So it wouldn't be flashing all the time, like what you're getting at Sea Park, or the reader board, or the reading. They are distracting, I agree. And if the sign bylaw were to be followed, those signs wouldn't be there, actually. And I did really follow the sign bylaw when I put this forward.
Thank you.
And thank you. It's a good question.
Thanks. Other comments? Councillor Parkinson?
There's been a lot of discussion around where the sign should go. And because Sea Park now has a flashing sign and the high school has a flashing sign, there's so many in that area. And I understand that we want it outside of town or on the entrance to town so that people who are coming to visit will know of the events that are going on in town, and so they may attend. And I also like the idea of having it centrally located as well in a town square or something like that. So I have no idea where the sign should go after all our discussions. Thank you.
Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. So I just have a few questions. So is this a digital sign that you're looking at?
It's a digital sign as what I presented to Sea Park before Sea Park put up their sign a long time ago.
Right.
Because Sea Park was partnering with the EMCS, and we were all partnering initially to put the same sign up.
Okay, so then so if it's a digital sign, then I've got a few follow-through questions. So who would own the sign? Who would pay for the cost of the sign? Who would do any maintenance or vandalism on the sign? And if it's digital, you need internet access, so where would that come from and who would update it?
Exactly. Those are all things. You need hydro. We'd be hardwired, and it'd be managed by one of the groups. There's a couple of groups that came forward at that time. There was Sioux Region Volunteer Center. EMCS was looking at managing it, and Sea Park was looking at managing it. Those were different opportunities at that time. There's another opportunity, which I haven't discussed with the people yet, but it would be an organization that could use the monies. And instead of people coming forward to council, like what's happening now, you get people coming forward and asking for, Sioux Fine Arts asking for X amount of dollars, or Sioux Harbor Players coming forward, and most of that money goes on advertising and signs.
So do you?
And it takes a lot of volunteer time.
Sorry, can I just one more question?
Yeah.
So do you? I'm just trying to relate this right back to the delegation. So do you have an agreement with a service group that wants to take this on? And again, to answer those tough questions of who's going to pay for the initial bill, which digital signs are pretty pricey, as you know, and then all of the maintenance thereafter.
Good questions. I agree. With maintenance with everything that we purchase. We purchase a lot of things and we don't take into
Yeah, so is there a
account
user
the
group
purchasing or care
Is
parts
there a user
included.
group in mind that you have an agreement with, or
I
not
don't
yet?
haven't talked with them yet. There was some user groups, yes. Sauk Region Volunteer Center was looking at it. And as far as the costs, there's the in-kind, like I say, I've asked somebody about supplying the wood to build it. And initially, it was going to go through the Arts and Beautification for the, and we were going to put out a call out for posts under for carving for artists, and it was going to be the entrance to Sauk, and building on that, any signs that would be built in Sauk would be built on that design, so that you'd have the continuity. Port Renfrew has a carved sign. Port Hardy has a carved sign. It's West Coast. It's West Coast theme. It's giving the theme that we've been looking for a long time. And I met with all the groups, including the Sauk First Nations. I've met with, I think, 15 groups initially before the sign came forward.
Okay. Other comments or questions from councillors? Okay, Councillor Parkinson, then Casper.
I would just like to make note, too, that council did approve the sign to go up. So it's in the minutes that council was going to approve it. So we should be looking at that as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Casper. Ben Pearson.
Just a question, did you give any thought to perhaps utilizing or better utilizing the space where there's a kiosk that's in the center of town?
It would be a distraction, and Highways, I believe, would not approve that. It's a distraction. It's too close, because it says not to be within, your own sign bylaw says not to be within 50 meters of a light, right, or an intersection, or a roundabout, or a crosswalk. So it would contravene your own sign bylaw. So those are the reasons that we moved out that far. One of the reasons, and of course, Quaney Road is the entrance to Sauk, and it would also catch East Sauk and Port Renfrew.
So just my last question then is, so I think what you're looking after is that there's got to be one common location for everybody, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Instead of like 2 or 3 different people doing one thing in different
yes,
locations.
everybody working together, and correct, and I could see the Lions and Rotary if they wanted to be a part of this, and Rotary did. Rotary was on board with this initially, right, and putting their decals on, same as Sauk District would put their signs on as well.
There's just an answer from Ms. Sullivan, then Councillor Pearson.
Thank you. A point of clarification, and it's my understanding that Mayor and Council have approved 2 separate community groups to take charge of the sign. These 2 groups are not prepared to work together, so that's part of the issue is coming forward. If you direct staff to work with these 2 groups and force the issue, I'm not sure how far we're going to get. So I think with respect to the council resolutions that we have right now, council really needs to take a good hard look at which direction they want to go here.
Thank you.
Councillor Pearson, thank you.
Thank you to the CAO. Through the chair to Ms. Lewis. I think we're all in agreement that the sign's a good idea. There was some sort of, I think there's some confusion that came up with the entrance to town beautification project, that it would be sort of melded together, and that sign would be in conjunction with the existing sign, or sort of augmenting the existing sign. That was kind of in the back of my mind. I'm thinking we're going to make a better and bigger sign at the Sea Park place. I kind of worry that's. I think maybe there was some confusion the way I was thinking. So
yes,
I kind of worry about the Connie Road, because that's a lonely stretch of road down there, from a vandalism point of view and things like that. That's kind of one of my concerns. But there's a nice farm across from the Shell station. Never mind. I think that what I would like to do is suggest is that we separate the 2 groups, the sign group, and tell staff to work in 2 different directions, and then come up with some proposed locations and costing and things like that, as opposed to thinking it was one project that would work together. So how's that? I'm kind of,
If I may, the initial project was, yes, to include Sea Park, and all, but that was before.
Right.
What happened is Sea Park got a new manager, high school got a new principal, and information wasn't passed on. So that's what happened there, and then two
yeah,
signs
and I
went
think
up.
that, they
Yeah,
wouldn't put their
and-
own signs up, and we were
Yes.
thinking something else was
Yes.
going to happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Councillor Parkinson?
When I think of the two groups and when I spoke with the Lions Club, their desire was to clean up the area by the museum in that area. I did not think a digital sign was going there. I thought that they wanted their sign, they wanted their logo, they wanted everybody to know that there's a Lions Club in this town. And that Rotary would come on with that. They would spruce it up. They'd put the benches there. They'd put a water station there so that people riding their bikes would have a place to stop. That's what I understood from the Lions Club. From the Arts and Beautification, I understood that they wanted a large sign, and the talk was to have a digital sign at one time. But when we first talked about it, it was to have the sign to be designed like this for the entrance to John Phillips Park, because there were comments throughout the town that no one knew what this park was called or that it was a park and where the entrance was, and there was no parking. And then it evolved, and it went to a digital sign, and it went to having everybody onto it. So I believe that it's two different projects in entirety, not one to come together.
Okay, thank you. So I'm hearing that we do have some motions to address the sign. It's determining the appropriate location, for one, and then secondly, where we're moving with this. So I kind of agree. They sound like two entirely different things, because another digital sign at the entrance, that's just too much in that area. There is an advantage of the Connie Road location because it is catching all that traffic. It is isolated. I know from campaign experience that things get knocked over very quickly in that area, but that's a completely different situation. So,
May I speak to that?
Sure.
I did talk to the people that do with the signs, and they say their signs are so tough. They take a lot of abuse.
Exactly, right.
And they are. Yeah, I talked to. I got 3 quotes,
and that's why an entry sign is completely different.
Yes.
There seems to be some activity occurring in that area. Some work seems to be happening there at the moment by somebody. It seems to be that something's going on there. So at this point, perhaps it should go to staff, and we can have sort of a staff report to just sort of separate the two items, and then just keep moving it forward. So perhaps if I could get a motion from a member of council.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Logans, that the sign project be referred to staff for further discussion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Lures. Okay, so we're going to move to item R13, Capital Regional District Board Director Appointment. We moved, when we approved the agenda, we moved it ahead of that, so that's where we're at now. Okay, Councillor Casper would like to speak to this.
Yes, I would like to move that Maya Tate be appointed to the Capital Regional District Board.
Okay, moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Just want to make a comment on this. Thank you, Councillor Casper, for the time that you've worked on this. I don't have my own microphone on. I appreciate that you've been sitting on the board now since November when I left. And so for myself, it wasn't like, okay, I'm back, even the iPad, we're back and show. There's likely some matters that you've been working on there. I know that you've been doing some items in regards to the sewage that the core municipalities are working on, the water out to the Wanda Fuca areas, and then the CRD is in budget deliberations at the moment. So my thoughts were that the appointment can remain as is so that you can see these things to conclusion, and then I can transition back perhaps after the summer, say in September, because I was thinking that you may want to complete the items that you're working on. There's only a few that I'm aware of, but there's likely others through the committee work. I know that the Parks committee is doing things with the Nature Trail Society, which I understand was a delegation to council at some point. And perhaps through environment at the AVICC, the Solid Waste Committee are doing some things there as well. So that's where I was thinking that you may want to see those things through to conclusion. I'm not in a rush to grab these things, but I do know that you've put a lot of work into it, and so that's where my thoughts were. What do you think about that and the rest of council?
Well, I appreciate your kind words and the appreciation of the work that I've done over the past few months. There are a few items, and one in particular is a joint notice of motion that I signed in regard to having limited permitted access in the Leech River area that I've signed on with 8 other area directors on the board. So I would leave it in your hands, and if that's what you would wish, we could actually have a timeline this time.
Yes.
Because that would be much appreciated for you and I think for the public in question.
Yeah.
So I'd be more than willing to make an amendment to that until, say, September.
Because there's also the Sea Park referendum, which feeds off the COD that our community is going to vote at the end of the month, and there'll be some follow-through for that regard. So
I'll just give you a heads up. I'm looking at being away in November for not a lengthy period of time, but for a period of time. So if council wished myself to sit as an alternate after that period of time, then you would actually have to be there quite a bit, I think.
Yes, and that's fine.
And I'm sure you understand that.
Absolutely. And the CRD tends to break in the summertime with both committees and the board, so that's where September may be a good time to shift. So if you make that friendly amendment, Councillor Pearson, you second the amendment? Okay, so on the amendment is that myself be reinstated as of September. Are there any discussion from council on the amendment? Councillor Berger.
This might not be the appropriate time. I'm just trying to think about but if we're going to pass a motion. My thought is that, would you like to be the alternate? Could we add that as another friendly amendment to amend the entire motion? Because I'm very happy to relinquish that and have you be the alternate then until you step back in as the chair. So should the director. Should the director not be able to, you're still in the loop.
I'm fine with it. I still get correspondence from the CRD in terms of what's going on. This is a unique opportunity for yourself as well to see what occurs at the board. You're also very involved with Sea Park and with the referendum. So in the event that Councillor Casper couldn't attend for something to do with that referendum, it may be good for you to speak to that. So I'm content with it just remaining as is.
I'm happy with whatever you wish. I have no problem appointing and making an amendment to appoint you to alternate or whatever you'd like.
Okay, thank you for asking. Councillor Logans?
I'm also happy with whatever you're comfortable with. But just thinking to make things a bit easier, would it be possible to reinstate you and then Councillor Casper as the alternate, and then just have him attend as the alternate until?
I'm fine with it remaining as is, and it can just stay. And then with the motion, it's all sort of clear for everybody. Thank you for that, and I think it'll be fine. I'll be in dialogue now that I'm back with Councillor Casper or Director Casper as to what's going on, and then we can transition. In the summertime would be a good time to have those conversations because it is a break at that time. And a big portion of what's underway by the CRD is we're going to be entering the third and final quarter at that time. Okay?
If I can just give you a heads up.
You're speaking to the amendment?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Parkinson is opposed.
I'd like my vote recorded.
And please record Councillor Parkinson's vote. Okay, now on the main motion as is. Councillor Casper?
I don't think I have anything else to add.
Okay. The interesting that came up on this, that I'll just add at the AVICC, was the conversation that there is no coverage for any councillors or mayors that go on maternity leave. And it's likely because this has never occurred before. anyone is really aware of. And so there has been movement by the AVICC. A late resolution was put forward and accepted by the delegates that it go to UBCM, that elected officials are protected and covered by maternity leave. So it's an excellent step forward for women and women's rights, particularly when we're trying to encourage younger women to get involved. We do have a younger woman at the table here, and we don't want maternity leave to be a barrier to her successes or any opportunities that may come your way at any time. Not suggesting that there's something.
Don't
but
give my
just
mom
saying.
any ideas. She's in the audience.
I know. I'm just putting out there for all women concerned. Councillor Casper?
Yes, and that was supported by all members. It was unanimously adopted, so that's something that should be noted. We are governed by, I guess some would say, archaic rules and regulations, and that's, I guess, the nature of the beast. And because of proposed federal changes that may occur, then that may lead other provinces, including this province, to look at legislation that governs local government and the roles and responsibilities in regard to elected officials, whether they be a councillor or a mayor. So, I think it's moving in the right direction. It's 2016, and, or sorry, yeah, 2016. Sorry about that. And, stop that, Kevin. And, I've been around for a long time, and I actually look forward to those changes. I think they're important.
So as you can see here, our Mr. Josephs have put the motion up on the board for everyone to read as amended. So I'll call the question on the motion then. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. Councillor Ray.
Just as housekeeping, I think I'd like to move a motion that effective September 2016, Councillor Casper becomes the alternate director. And then I have another motion to follow after that.
Would your other motion have to do with the hospital board?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the motion then would be that as of September 1st, 2015, Councillor Casper, Councillor 2016, that Councillor Casper be appointed as alternate director to the CRD board until December 1st in the year of the next general local election, and that the appointment of District of Sooke Mayor Maya Tate as director and Councillor Rick Casper as alternate director to the CRD hospital board effective September 1st, 2016 until the year of the next general local election.
Thank you.
Second. Does that covers everything? Has that been seconded? Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Berger. Comments or questions on the motion? Councillor Pearson.
The only thing, and I fully agree with it, it's just that what if things change between now and September 1st? You're tying your hands to say that we're going to do something on September 1st. What if there's something different? What if Councillor Casper doesn't want to do it September 1st? Okay, I have no problem. I'll support the motion. It just seems like we're putting a motion that we should discuss in September or August. That's what it feels like to me.
Well, this way there's a timeline because that's
I got the timeline.
Yes.
I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I'm just asking the question is, what if the players change and Councillor Casper doesn't want to be the alternate? It should be a question because what's going to happen now is that's going to be automatic.
Yes, it'll be automatic,
Okay.
and if there's an issue, we'll bring something forward later through at that time.
Seems like okay. I'm perfectly fine with it.
And just for clarification, Your Worship,
yes.
I would suggest that the alternate director to the Capital Regional Director Board, the one that Mr. Joseph has up, be the first motion, and then to then do the second motion that would put you back as the director for the Capital Regional District Hospital. I think they should be two separate ones because that's how they were outlined in the last.
Okay, so we'll deal with this one first. Any further questions on this motion here? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And then the next one, Councillor Ray?
The next one would be to appoint Maya Tate as the Mayor Maya Tate as the municipal director and Councillor Rick Casper as the alternate municipal director to the Capital Regional District Hospital Board effective September 1st, 2016.
Second. Yeah, until the December 1st and then the year of the next general local
Right,
election.
thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
So moved by Councillor Ray and seconded by Councillor Casper. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Yes, Councillor Casper.
I really appreciate what
Yes.
our acting corporate officer just did by typing up those motions so that we can see them and the public can see them, because it's really important and it really adds value.
And that's something we're going to start doing on a regular basis. We have new screens coming in, and you'll see your motions on a regular basis in front of you.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're keep moving along here. Our next item of business is our public question and comment period. There's 2 minutes for each speaker. If you could please come forward and give your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Margot Swinburnson, School District Trustee, School District 62, 4527 Otter Point Road in Souk. I just wanted to correct some misinformation that Kelly Hunter was very zealous in her support of the soccer field, which is great. I don't want to interfere with that. But I do need people to realize that Edward Milne Community School has outperformed Belmont academically for the last 2 years, and lots of great things are happening at that school, and I would really like to correct that piece of misinformation that we haven't been very good about putting out, but I think as well that Souk is also really needs to be aware that it's a great little high school with a lot of support for a lot of kids. That's it. Just an advertisement, actually, rather than a comment.
Thank you very much. Other speakers?
Margarita Dominguez, 2075 Other Point Road. I was not given the opportunity to express my opinion regarding the CRD board, which in my personal opinion and on behalf of the animals, Reid Casper seemed to be the most appropriate to represent the animals in the CRD board. I apologize to you for the maternity leave. This has nothing to do with that. But Reid Casper have shown a lot of consideration to the elders, to the animals, and to the low-income families regarding that they have animals. And the CRD board is a very important position regarding animals, especially because we are trying to convince the CRD to accept no-kill shelters instead of just dealing with kill shelters. And because you have removed our animals without any consideration, we think that Council was appropriate, the decision that they took before. We apologize to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Gail Hall, 2517 Souk River Road. I just wanted to briefly say about the council procedure bylaw changes. I find them rather confusing. For instance, Section 19, when we're all supposed to be able to speak to everything, public hearings, bylaws, reports, and new business, it doesn't make it clear to me whether we speak before council deals with it, after council deals with it, or how that's supposed to work. I find that confusing, and I think it's overkill. I really think that council should do their meeting the way they've always, and if we must talk to all these things, then we should have a question period perhaps at the end of the meeting as opposed to in between everything that you're going to deal with. I mean, just think about tonight and decide how long you'd be sitting here if we're all allowed to walk up and have 3 minutes on everything that you've dealt with tonight. I think it's overkill. I think it's confusing. And I actually totally don't understand very much of it. And I should, but I don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Other members of the public?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Loretta Deutscher, 7026 Wright Road, Souk. I wish to speak about the bylaw 634 and the Council Procedure Amendment bylaw 4221, particularly under presentation to Council. It states that people should make presentation to the Chief Executive Officer, who would review the applications and present them to Council. In my view, and in my opinion, that is a barrier to people who may want to speak on to Council and Mayor about an issue or an agenda item that is important to them or to a group. So I would like to see that it be the Mayor and Council who review the applications and decide who comes forward to present to Council and about an item. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Deutscher. Any other comments or questions? Call for a second time. Okay, so we'll move on in the agenda. Thank you very much to all the speakers. Into bylaw section B1, bylaw number 634, Council Procedure Amendment bylaw 422-1. And Mr. Joseph, will you be making the presentation? Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm not going to make a presentation again because I did so on the 14th of March. I will highlight a couple of things. These proposed amendments, and they are simply proposed, are in reaction to a number of people on Council wanting to clarify the public participation process because our bylaw was not clear in some areas, and to also increase public participation. This is Council's bylaw, and any amendments you want to make are obviously yours because this is your bylaw and how you feel will best work for your community. Administration does not have a feeling on this one way or the other. We're here to make sure your bylaws work. I will point out two things that we've noticed since the last presentation. There were two sections that should be altered. One is section 18.1K. It says councillor and it should really say council. That includes the mayor as well as all councillors. The other section, too, there was an omission in section 19 where basically a member of the public shouldn't be addressing Council regarding the legal actions currently be taking place. That was taken out, but it should have been kept in. So those are two things that if Council does move the bylaw, at least as written, you can make other amendments, but these should be in it as well. And I'll answer any questions about the bylaw you have.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. One thing that stands out to me a bit is the length of time in terms of increased delegations from 5 to 10 minutes and the public input from 2 to 3. We're currently at almost 10 after 8, and we're just entering the scheduled business of the day. So if we had doubled that or increased it, and then the delegations go longer, because if you have 5 minutes of time, you can ask for more. If you have 10 minutes of time, what if you need more time? And then we pass a motion, okay, then the delegations go from 10 to, say, 15 minutes. And then we still have to deal with the business of the day. If there's public hearings, there's public input, and those sessions can go long as well. Because we are here to deal with all the different reports and such that have gone in there. I kind of see that just leaving the time limits alone and then extending them on an as-needed basis is something to consider because of the time. It's not just us that's sitting here. It's all of our staff sitting here, members of the public. It is a Monday. It is a work night. So it is something to consider for that regard. Councillor Ray?
Thank you. And, I think 3 minutes per person. There was a conversation initially that it be 2 minutes, and then we put it to 3. I think it's important and we've seen it before when people have come forward and said, oh, I forget what I wanted to say about that matter ahead of time. I think part of my reasoning behind moving it from 5 minutes to 10 minutes is that at 10 minutes there was no extra time, because this evening we were probably well over half an hour by the time we finished 2 delegations. And how do you, excuse me if I lose my voice, how do you decide when you're going to cut somebody off at one delegation and say, no, that's enough? and then another time, you give one group 5 extra minutes and another group you give 8. And I think it's just trying to bring some consistency and fairness to each and every delegation that comes forward. And that if that's understood at 10 minutes it's finished, then they're all fair and they're all consistent. That's where I was coming from when I suggested the 10 minutes, because I think when we extend it, we start to get into a practice that may not be fair to all of our delegations. So that's just what was behind it.
Okay. Councillor Casper?
I don't mean to put Councillor Pearson on the spot, but I think when he was acting mayor, there was one delegation that went to 18 minutes or longer. So, and it can have a tendency to go on, right?
And there was some cheering.
Yeah, that's right. So I have mixed emotions about it. I want to encourage people to participate and not feel that the buttons here, and this process actually helps because it takes away the sort of somebody making a purely discretionary call that your time's up. So you've got something to work with on your presentation, and it does help. It's what a lot of other jurisdictions do. I don't know, maybe there's a great Canadian compromise and call it 7 minutes or whatever. I don't know. But I think what we've seen over a period of time, there's some people who can actually do it in probably 3 minutes. And it's very simple, and they're done. And then there's others who need that additional time. So,
Councillor Parkinson?
It's I agree. I would like to hear the public speak. I believe that the 10 minutes is great as long as we don't do the extensions over and above, that people are aware you have 10 minutes to speak and that would be it. If we go to the 5 minutes, then we would probably go to the extensions again and it will keep going longer than what it is. This evening we gave them 2 extensions. So I like the idea of 10 minutes and that's it.
Okay.
And also in regards to the 3 minutes after every single item, I don't agree with that one either. Because you're right, if you have 5 people or 6 people coming up after each presentation to speak, it'll just keep going on and on.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson?
And I think that the point is, for me, the 10 minutes, I think that's good because I think it's 10 minutes or less. Some people do get it done in the 5, 6, 7 minutes. So I think that's a good compromise by us because we're trying to encourage people. You don't want people rushed in the delegation presentation. You want them to be able to give that information. So I think 10 minutes is ample. I think that, listening to all the other councillors and cutting it off, I think that the 3 minutes was that encouragement because at the end of 2 minutes, the light comes on and gives you that, okay, wrap it up. And I think I think it's a good thing. I'd be happy if there was 5 or 6 people at every council meeting who wanted to speak. No, I'd be happy if there was 5 or 6 here in general. Our experience is that there's not a lot of people who come to council, so I don't think 3 minutes is onerous. And I think it's a good. I think we got challenged about the access to speaking, and I think that we're trying to make that access to us. That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Logans?
Oh boy. There's not much here that I agree with except a few things. And I'm wondering if we can go through them piece by piece and discuss kind of maybe each section, or if it's best to just tackle them each person at a time.
Well, something to think about is that we received a copy of the full bylaw in its entirety with the various sections sort of blacklined. And there may be other items in here in terms of, putting forward points of order, reports from committees. There's items about phoning in. One question that I sort of played on is do we need to look at a mechanism for a councillor to Skype in if need be? And so in this case, where this is pretty much dealing with the public input piece. So if this were to pass, it's dealing with that, but there may be other areas of this bylaw that need to be updated, in which case we would have another staff report and need to revise it yet again. Suggestion may be to move this to a committee of the whole, where we can go through the whole bylaw in its entirety and look at all the various sections, perhaps, rather than just passing part of it now and then other sections later, and have it more of a sort of living document that we can think about for now. I think tonight was a good example of the delegation piece and the 10 minutes, and that's fine. It's just something I wanted to throw out there. And then we can look at the other pieces. We do have a new corporate team here that may be bringing forward other ideas and other suggestions as they get into place over time, and see a way that we can improve this as a whole, as opposed to doing it piecemeal. So that's something to think about. It's either, but I'm looking for what council would like to do here.
Just to follow up on that, I mentioned to our acting corporate officer this evening that there was a piece about legal action missing. So and that I just found browsing it, like I've been through this a few times and I just realized that now. So it seems to me that it's just too soon to be introducing first and second and third reading at this time, because if I'm still finding things that are missing that are important just tonight, then it's not a complete enough document to be moving forward at this time. I like the idea of bringing it to committee of the whole to discuss a bit further and make sure that if we're going to be doing so many large changes to the bylaw, that we're actually doing it properly.
Okay, would you like to make that motion?
I will, yes.
Okay, is there a seconder? Second. Moved by Councillor Logans to move the bylaw to a committee of the whole for further discussion, and seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Casper?
So is it possible to have Mr. Joseph contact all the council members if there are any highlights or specific items that they want to see addressed or proposed changes on a list, so that it helps us, all of us, to get a better understanding of what your concerns are, Brenna's concerns, mine, and other members of council. You know, it may make your job easier too, Mr. Joseph.
Absolutely. I could sit down with each council individual and go over every section if you like.
I think it would help.
Yeah, we can arrange to do that. I mean, we can, and then look at bringing this to a committee of the whole in another month, depending on everyone's availability. I think that the comments that every councillor raises should be available for public, just so the public is aware of what we're doing. I think that it may not have to note the specific councillor's name, but here are some items so that the public is aware of what we're thinking and can give some feedback on that. And then we can look at discussing it as a whole in the committee of the whole time.
I can recommend that I went through a similar process as another municipality where I was a municipal clerk, and I actually brought a procedural bylaw forth with all of the possibilities in each section, and council got to either accept or throw out whatever they didn't like. I mean, I can easily do that here.
Okay. Because it is a good discussion to have at a future Cal meeting, and then for those of you that were at AVICC and maybe connected with other municipalities, you could get some feedback in terms of what is working or not working in their municipalities and what they've inputted as well. So it's a good offer. I think it should remain as a living document. Okay, so any discussion then on the motion to move it to Cal? Anything further? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to move on next to our reports section, reports requiring action, RA1, the Sooke Fire Services Commission recommendations. Okay, Ms. Sullivan. And welcome, Mr. Ebbs Canavan. And the other commission members, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go through a little bit of history with respect to the Commission and what their responsibilities are before I get into the recommendations that are being put forward before Mayor and Council this evening. But first of all, I want to thank our fire commissioners for all their hard work on this file. They've spent a great deal of time collecting information and interviewing our volunteer and career firefighters. The commissioners are here with us tonight, and I want to recognize them now. Ken Ebbs Canavan, Cam McIntyre, and Murray Lampert. Thank you for all the work that you've done. Secondly, I want to assure Mayor and Council the Commission's recommendations are not about the fine work of our volunteers and career firefighters. The Commission's recommendations focus on the mandate in their terms of reference approved by this Mayor and Council. The roles and responsibilities of the Commission are to undertake a review and analysis of the Fire Department level of services related to the Fire Commissioner's structure, firefighters' competency and training playbook, and long-term apparatus replacement. Report to the CAO on means to improve the overall effectiveness of services in a fiscally responsible manner. Provide advice and recommendations to the CAO with respect to the financing, equipping, and operating of the fire department. And finally, to undertake specific work in relation to the fire department and the direction of the CAO. Given that the fire department represents the second largest expenditure to the District of Sooke, the Fire Commission recommends that we immediately conduct an audit of the Sooke Fire Department, freeze all new equipment purchases for the fire department until this audit has been completed, with exception of any needed emergency equipment under the spending authority of the CAO, and ensure that all future spending for the fire department includes sign-off by the CAO. These steps are necessary to ensure proper financial management and controls are in place, appropriate oversight of the fire department assets is in place, budgets are appropriated in accordance to our policies and procedures, operational matters are appropriately addressed, and that all relevant provincial statutes are being followed. The Fire Commissioners want to reiterate these recommendations are not a reflection of the hard work and dedication of our volunteer and career firefighters. These recommendations focus on fiscal responsibility, accountability, and compliance. The focus of these recommendations is to save money and operate more efficiently. This is simply the first step in our drive towards good governance as set out in our strategic plan, namely to conduct ongoing asset and risk assessments for a number of our business streams at the District of Sooke. More recommendations will be forthcoming as the work of the Fire Commission progresses. The Fire Commissioners are here to answer your questions, should you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Question that I just have is, in terms of the audit, what sort of timeline would you anticipate for that?
That largely depends on when we can find an auditor that's available. My expectation would be within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, so fairly quick then.
Absolutely.
For the process.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, open the mic to councillors. Councillor Logans?
I'm sure I have a lot of questions about this, but the very first one that I would like to ask, because in this report here it says a more detailed analysis will be presented to council in future as information from the recommendations in this report becomes available. With that sentence, I don't feel comfortable moving the recommendations.
Ms. Sullivan?
If I may, the more detailed analysis is going to come from the audit. So the audit will come forward. We'll get the findings from the auditors. They will be brought forward to Mayor and Council, and then the recommendations from the Commission will be surrounding the audit findings.
Yes, so I think it would be best to have that information before moving forward.
Okay. Other comments or questions from councillors? Councillor Ray?
Yes, thank you. My concern is the timeline for the budget and the bylaw requirements for the current 5-year plan. And I'm not sure that if we don't pass the recommendations that we'll be able to meet that legislative timeline.
I believe maybe Mr. Blackhall can confirm that our budget must be adopted by May 15th, May 14th?
May 15th is correct.
May 15th? Okay. Councillor Parkinson, then Casper.
I have a couple of questions, and I would appreciate if you would explain to me the summary of the budget changes that was done. So for the shifts, the reduction is $25,000. I was just wondering how you come up with the deductions and to remove items.
What exactly are you looking at, Council?
So the first one is shifts. It was, the original was 45. It's been revised to 20. And I was just wondering how that affects the workings of the fire department by lowering the finances.
Good question. When we looked into what was a shift, we had no idea what it was. It's actually overtime.
Okay.
Okay? And we were instructed that they don't pay overtime. Okay, so what's it there for? So that's why we took that part off, because of the fact that we had to reduce it, so we reduced it at shifts, 25.
So when we don't pay overtime, if we don't have anybody to go out for a call, then we just don't send anybody out?
They still have some, I believe, on there. They have, they still have $20,000 there left.
Okay, so right now, from my understanding, for the overtime, part of that would be to do with Rick McLeod retiring. So then would that mean that, I understand that the full-time firemen get...
I have to caution you, Councillor Parkinson, that you're going into an area that we shouldn't be going into, because you're going to compromise what the Commission is trying to do. What we've done is we've brought the report forth as to the monetary value of it, and the review is going to be forthcoming on the audit, and then we'll know exactly where we're going. So what you're asking the Commission to talk about right now is things that we can't divulge where we're at right at the moment, because we'll compromise what we're trying to do.
Okay, so I understand
just
that.
Sorry, Councillor Parkinson, Ms. Sullivan, I think, had a clarifying comment to a question that you had asked.
Okay.
I'd just like to give her that opportunity to clarify that.
Yes, and thank you. And I would appreciate the questions coming through me, because the Commission does report through the CAO to Mayor and Council. The issue is with respect to the use of our volunteers. And are we using our volunteers in an appropriate manner or not? The questions that, when you get into the details with respect to staffing, at this point in time, we cannot go down that road. We have a collective agreement with the IIFF that is going to be going forward. We could find ourselves in front of the Labor Board. We can find ourselves in front of many different audiences. So as the Fire Commissioner stated, when we get the findings from the audit report, we will come back to Mayor and Council, and then we will talk about next steps.
So I can relate to all that, but we put forward these items that are supposedly for discussion, otherwise they shouldn't be here. And then you want us to make a recommendation, but we're not allowed to have any information on it.
There are certain things that are going on in the fire department right now that, from a management perspective and an oversight perspective, we are trying to address, and that's all I can say at this point in time.
So then we shouldn't be discussing this at all.
Okay. Councillor Casper, then Berger.
So I just have one question through you to the chair of the commission. I just want assurances that the changes that are being proposed by the commission that deal with financial matters will not have any impact on the level of service that is supplied by the Sooke Fire Department. Is that correct?
Without a doubt.
Okay, so you're very confident in that?
Absolutely.
Okay, that I'm fully satisfied with that answer, because, you know, I look to you members as former professionals, a longstanding volunteer of the Sooke Fire Department, and that's why you individuals were selected to serve on the commission, because of your professional and voluntary expertise in regard to fire departments and how they should in fact operate. And in my opinion, you're doing so in the best interest of the District of Sooke taxpayers, correct?
That's correct. When the committee was formed, the commission was formed, we sat down as a group, and we were going to deal with three things and three things only: integrity, loyalty, and honesty. Okay? Integrity, loyalty, and honesty. And we haven't deterred from that one iota. And that is to provide accountability with transparency. This has been very difficult to get exactly where we're at right now. And I can't say anything more at present, because it would compromise the commission and what it's done so far. And legally, we couldn't, because of how the commission is set up. What we have looked at, as Councillor Casper just said, is that the monetary figure, and can the fire department run and with the same standard that they have been running? Yes, they can. So there's absolutely no doubt in our mind that their good service will carry on exactly the same way. Okay. Excuse me. But with the audit that's going to be done, as the CEO has said, it compromises a lot of the answers that would come here tonight because of information that we don't have yet. Okay?
Councillor Berger, then Pearson, then Logans.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Commission, for doing all the work that you've done. And I can imagine it's a big task. And the reason why I say it's a big task and the reason why I'll be supporting the recommendation tonight is that if we look back and if I go through, this is now my third council. The very first council is on, the second council is on, and now this council. We've never taken an initiative to really look at an inventory and to get a handle on what we need and what are priority items for the fire department. And if we look within our own municipal budget, so our budget clearly right now says for our capital items in the 5-year plan that we're working on, it's $1.5 million in fire department expenditures over the next 5 years. One of those years is allocated at $638,000. That's an insane tax increase that's put upon the people of Souk. So part of the Commission's jobs in which we ask them to do is looking at how we can smooth that, how we can provide a level of service that's adequate for our community, as well as, and that relates to staffing, which of course we can't talk about because it's under a collective agreement, but also with expenditures. So it's a huge task that the Commission is taken upon them to look at how we can eliminate really big highs and lows within our tax increases. So thank you for your work.
Councillor Pearson.
Thank you to the Commission. Through the chair to the chair of the Commission. Thank you for your work that you've done thus far. I think that I know that you guys have been, as a group, have been working hard behind the scenes, trying to come up with ways that that will protect our service as well as protect the taxpayers and maximum service with lowest cost. And I fully appreciate the work that you're doing. So I will be supporting the recommendation. Actually, I'm going to make a motion to approve the 5-year financial plan for the fire department as presented in attachment number 1 of the April 11th, 2016 Fire Commission Recommendations Report, number 1. And number 2, to direct staff to implement the recommendations outlined in the April 11th, 2016 Fire Commission Recommendations Report, number 1.
Okay, so the motion as stated is moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Berger. So next we go to Councillor Logans, then Parkinson, then Casper.
It's absolutely ridiculous and insane that the motion was moved without any questions asked about why $80,000 was removed from equipment and why $60,000 was removed from replacement to Squad 1 and the other reductions as well. We need more information before making a decision. It's not that we don't trust what the committee is doing, but it's just ridiculous to make an uninformed decision. So I would like answers to those questions before we vote on this.
Ms. Sullivan?
Part of the auditor's work is going to be around the capital assets of the fire department and whether or not the level of assets that we currently have is appropriate and whether or not we actually do need to purchase new capital equipment. So those findings will come through the findings from the auditor and brought forward to Mayor and Council.
The auditor is not part of the commission, with all due respect, and I would like to know why the commission has taken that amount out.
Because the Commission is of the belief that those equipment purchases are not necessary in their professional experience.
Councillor Parkinson?
I would just like to say, with the summary of the budget changes, that I do not have the information to fully understand why this has happened. I don't know what the policy is going to be for call-outs for the fire department. I do not have a problem with the audit. I think that once the audit is in place and you have all the questions answered, then you can make an informed decision. But by giving us a report and we have questions as to what things mean and no answers given, I find it really hard to vote positive for that.
Thank you. Councillor Casper?
Yeah, I just want to get some assurances, and maybe it will give comfort to the other council members, that what's being proposed is that the changes or the reductions or the removal of these funds And is the exact total 165, roughly $190,000? Is that the amount, of the line items that's changed? If we show the capital budget would be $140,700, and then we've got the operating budget, and it's the change is 2518, so that's 43, so roughly $51,000 there, correct? So I'm pretty close, $190,000. So that does not mean that money is gone and lost. That money could go into a council contingency in the event after the audit is done, and if there is a shortfall or it's been identified that items need to be covered in expense, that there's a provision to do that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So, and even though that's not included in this motion, or these two motions, correct?
That is
so
correct.
The next step would then to take those dollars with a third motion and to instruct our staff to put that into the council contingency fund that's purely at council's discretion with the recommendations of the commission and our CAO to make expenditures out of that pot of money, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So hopefully that'll give people some comfort. It's not like the money's going to disappear forever.
Okay, I think, though, is that an amendment that you would like to add to this?
I would add that to number 3.
Okay, so that, I'm just looking at what's up there. That, like this right now, 1 and 2 are the items that have been moved.
Yes.
And so are you making an amendment then to add number 3?
Yes.
That the funds as they are reduced, 25,000, 18,000, 8,000, 80,700, 6,000, all be moved into council contingency?
Yes. And so
Okay.
that we would have direct control later on based on the findings. I think that would give everybody comfort that the money's not lost, and that if it's been identified that certain pieces of equipment can be purchased, whatever they may be.
Okay, so
then
if you're
it can be
making,
done.
sorry, Councillor Castro, just in point of order, like if you're making that amendment, do we have a seconder for that amendment?
Well, I would so move.
If you so move that, do we have a seconder? Okay, seconded by Councillor Ray. Okay, so let's just talk about the amendment here. I think for myself, this is a new thing that we've done in terms of establishing the commission. Councillor Berger is correct in saying that we have sat on any sort of dialogue or discussion or made any progress with the fire department for a number of years. There were reports that were brought forward by both our staff and community volunteers to various committees where they've just sort of been received and filed, and they've just sat and sat and sat. And then last year we looked at actually contracting out or hiring I can't remember the name, but somebody to sort of review everything. And again, we took that information and we sat. And then so that sort of led us to down the road to the establishment of a fire commission. So we've delegated this authority to this commission that we now have to go through and do this. I appreciate where Councillor Parkinson and Logans are coming from, because you do want to have factual information when you're answering the public as to why these things happen. And it's difficult when you delegate this off, and some would view it as an abdication because we've passed it off. But at the same time, we are looking to actually progress with this because we haven't done anything for a long time and it's gone a bit stagnant. And I think that's a disservice to our community. But it is awkward. I hear where you're coming from, because you want to see, well, this is removed and why. When you're asked in the street, why did you take this out? Why did you take this out? It's an audit. You don't have those answers. And it's hard to say, well, it's to the commission. They can't give answers because certain things are currently in camera. So it's an awkward situation at all. I am comfortable with what the chair has said in terms of the operations are to remain as is, that the fire department will continue to operate as it is, because we are at risk for fire all the time. We want to see that we're continually attracting volunteers, that our fire department is safely able and equipped to respond to these calls. I think that's something that everybody here shares. We want to know that when our volunteers go out and our career staff go out, that they're safe, they're responding as they should. I know that the call volume has increased. Some would argue, why are we responding to all of these, whether it's first responder or those sorts of calls. That's a policy decision that we will have to make as a council in terms of what calls. And if we choose to respond to everything, we need to make the decision, what are we going to equip for then? That has to come back to us, and we have to have that conversation So I think it's a bit early. I do feel what you are feeling. At the same time, finding a way to move forward. The one challenge I have, though, or maybe not a challenge, where the spending is signed off by the CAO, I'm wondering what that spending looks like. I picture a fire, we have volunteers working all hours, there's food and sandwiches and maybe things that need to be purchased on the fly to deal with whatever comes up. There's a lot of uncertain elements. Are you expecting the fire chief to step away to have these things signed off? Like, what is there must be some discretionary level that the chief has to deal with these calls as they come up without having to pause it. So if you could give me just sort of what the parameters there may look like.
I think each one of our officers have some discretionary funding within their budgets. I'm talking about the major line items that, because our sign-off policy basically says 2 people needs to sign off on everything, and in the fire department case, it's just been typically the chief. So I'm trying to improve some financial management and controls there and some accountabilities. And we as a district are responsible for doing that. It's standard practice right across all municipalities and in other levels of government that you always have the second signature on your purchase orders or on your expenditures and on your invoices.
Okay, so you are looking at major expenditures. So in terms of what is in the budget, though, then the chief is able to to run his department and to do what he needs to do for the day.
Yes, of course the chief can run his department, but we do need that second set of eyes on the expenditures that are made there.
Okay.
It's not unlike our Director of Corporate Services, our Director of Finance, our Director of Development Services. Sure. It's the same for everyone.
Okay. Councillor Casper.
No, I think I'm fine.
You're fine there? Okay, so we're looking at the amendment. Okay, Ms. Sullivan?
My apologies for interrupting, but on item number 3, we can put the expenditures, the overtime and the like into council contingency, but we cannot put capital expenditures into a council contingency. Those expenditures come from the Fire Reserve Fund, and so that doesn't affect our taxes.
Okay, so those would just, okay, I see.
So they would be.
Okay.
So they would just be held off in abeyance, if I may.
It's
not like the money would be totally lost, correct?
That is correct.
They just wouldn't be expended this year, correct?
Correct.
But there's still an opportunity to do it, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I guess the other question I had is with our continually, I think we're always looking for volunteers and turnout gear and the like, so any sort of gear required for our volunteers or emergency, that's all protected or considered that they can. That's
correct. They have that right now.
Okay.
They have extra sets that they use on a regular basis, and it's not going to change the running of the fire department in any way. The money gets moved aside in the contingency fund. It's still there. What we did is we took $51,000 and put it aside that we felt to bring it in line. And once the audit is done, then the council can move forward and make a firm decision to CAO, to council, as what we want you to do. And the money is still in abeyance.
Okay.
We haven't taken it away and given it away. We just said we don't need it. We decided that it wasn't needed right now, and that was our decision as the commission.
Okay.
And we stand behind that.
Okay, thank you. So questions on, I'll deal with the amendment first to the motion. Any further questions on the amendment of adding number 3? All those in favor? Opposed? Opposed by Councillor Logans? Carried. Okay, so that brings us back to the main motion for the recommendations as stated there. Is there any further dialogue on the main motion? Councillor Parkinson?
I just want to say on the one that you were speaking.
Sorry, can you turn on your microphone?
On page 38C, ensure that all future spending for the fire department includes a sign-off. I think that should state that it's for major expenditures in that statement, so that the chief is able to knows that he can spend whatever it is he needs to do.
Ms. Sullivan?
I would like the chief to have the same accountabilities as the rest of the leadership team in the District of Sauk.
Okay, so we're on the motion now. Any further comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Opposed by Councillor Parkinson and Logans. Carried. Okay, so we look forward to the audit findings when they receive. Thank the Commission for their work. And well, that's all one motion.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've amended it, and it's on the main motion, and then the funds are there. And we'll, yeah. Okay, so our next item of business is RA2, the Sauk Program for the Arts Committee recommendations. It's been brought to my attention that Mr. Drew Johnson, Chair of the SPA Committee, is here to speak to this item.
Good evening. I'm Drew Johnston, 2339 Mountain Heights Drive. We put forward two recommendations. One was for funding for $3,000 for to operate the Communities in Bloom initiative, and also the second recommendation was calling for staff support for that initiative. I've since been informed, since our committee formulated this committee, that or the recommendation about the $3,000, that it's already been included as a line item in the budget. And so I was advised that we probably, as a committee, didn't need to bring forward that recommendation. It's already been approved and put forward in the budget. The second recommendation was, and I appreciate that that we have a limited amount of staff. They're already providing, we have a person providing staff support to us. We had put forward that recommendation to ensure that there were continued staff support for the Communities in Bloom initiative. There's a couple of elements, primarily around the submission to the judges, a report that needs to be prepared. It's on the website right now. I think the 2014 profile book and a 2014 photo album. What we would propose is that we just update those materials and submit it to the judges. So I'm expecting that it won't be as onerous as in 2014. The other element is that staff orient the judges to what's been done in Sauk since their last visit to the community. So whether that's completion of the downtown area or other initiatives around town. And so that would involve the judges meeting with some of the staff, senior staff, such as the engineering director, the CAO, director of corporate services, just to get a highlight of some of the new developments in town. So those were the background to the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Joseph?
Madam Chair, it's very important that if the committee wants us as staff to support them in this, we need a detailed list of what they expect, because when I asked my staff what they had done in previous years, it's not possible for us to do that this year. We're already down a person in corporate services. They outlined the number of hours they spent, a lot of which was covered in previous years by unclaimed overtime. I'm not willing to ask my staff to do that. They're not volunteers. They're paid staff. They have families. And based on the commitment that we've done in previous years, if the Communities in Bloom would like to, ask council for money for a staff person outside the organization, I think they're more than willing to do so. I think that should be included in any community grant to come forward in the future. But to just assume that we have all of these extra staff hours, we just simply don't this year.
Okay, so the last time we participated in Community in Blooms, I believe, was in 2014, and it's been ongoing for a number of years, and we finally achieved the 5 Bloom status, I'm thinking 2012 maybe? And then we were able to maintain it. Last year, because of the infrastructure works, we did not participate simply because of all the road work and such that had happened. There is a beautiful profile book, and that's our submission. There's a tour with the judges. We are a Community in Bloom's community. I believe that's on our sign. So I think we need to decide on what we're going to do here. Now, the benefits of Community in Bloom are I think, are quite substantial. It really showcases our community, highlights our community. The business community gets involved. There's all sorts of efforts made by business owners over and above their normal operating hours. There's a big cleanup around town that's involved. It does evoke a lot of civic pride. So I think it's a very valuable project. I appreciate that the staff resources are tough and that a lot of work goes into this. The volunteers on the committee, though, I don't think are equipped to address the profile book and to do all that, and that's where you do need to have some staff support. So I'm wondering where council is at with this in terms of what they would like to do, because do we either maintain the status or do we actually participate? That's a decision we have to make. If we participate, we should look at then, do we look at engaging a staff person of some sort for the specific project? Are we contracting someone, or let's have a conversation about that. Councillor Logans.
I agree that it's very important, and we've worked really hard to get the status. So it would be nice if we could support the Communities in Bloom program again. If I can sidetrack just a little bit, I know that there are other committees who are also struggling with staff support. So this is a question and an issue that's going to come up repeatedly, not just with Communities in Bloom, and we need to find a solution with that as an aside to this. I don't know if we can, we can't do that tonight, but of course we have to remember that going forward as well, that like the Community Center Committee, for example, again, that's something that we committed to. However, now we don't have staff support for that committee. So these things are going to come up because we're losing staff support for all of our committees.
Councillor Casper, then Pearson.
I just have a question of the chair. So what are the timelines? You know, I think if I get an understanding of the timelines, when do certain things have to be done to meet this timeline? And is this 2 months or 3 months down the road?
The judges, I understand, are coming in July.
Okay, so July. So if we work backwards, right?
Yes.
There's 4 months. And at what time does this profile book have to be in their hands? When they arrive?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it a matter of coordinating their efforts in showing them around the community? Is that part of the time frame as far as a staff person?
That's right. That would be part of the staff commitments when the judges come to town to take them around, highlight in person some of the developments in the community, perhaps.
Right.
Sit down with them and tell them these things. And just on the suggestion about the contract writer, I think we would be receptive to, if we could contract with a contract writer, editor type person that could synthesize all the new developments in the town and update the current profile book, and that would be quite helpful.
Well, can I throw out a suggestion? You know, I think there's an opportunity here, whether it's Councillor Parkinson who sort of leads this file, or other members, or yourself, for us to actually take some pride in what we're doing, and maybe we could participate too. Instead of having a staff person driving people around and showing them what's going on, maybe it's an opportunity for us to show off our community. And I know that Councillor Parkinson will be there no matter what. I'm assuming that. But I think that's an opportunity, right?
My understanding was that the judges in the past have met with the mayor and council.
Yes.
And
briefly
had a luncheon together.
Yes.
And
but I'm just saying that there, I think it could be enhanced a little more. Souk is a community of volunteers who do a great amount of work, and the only thing I'm afraid of is that we have a lot of items on our table right now. Council is in the midst of going through some changes as far as the priorities that we've earmarked, that we've embarked upon, and it may come to the point where, okay, which item on our list are we going to drop? And I personally don't want to get to that point because I've seen it over the years, and it's no disrespect to your good work, but it's add on, and it's maybe this much, but by the time you add 10 of those, it's this much, and that is what can bog down the organization as a whole. You know, I like the idea of maybe if there's some money available to do a contract for something to free up our staff so that they don't have to do that. And secondly, maybe we could actually amongst ourselves try to involve ourselves in a more active way. Instead of having a staff person drive people around, you know, I've got a 7-passenger Pathfinder, and I guess if somebody wanted to go drive around with me and, you know, hopefully they can trust my driving, I could show them gladly around what's going on in our community.
We'll keep that in mind.
Okay, well, I'm offering my services, okay? So I just throw that as an idea, okay?
Yeah, and our expectation is that these judges would meet with the mayor and council as they have done in the past. And so if it entails driving around too, we would welcome that.
Councillor Pearson.
No, yeah. Councillor Casper's ride comes with earmuffs. No, I'd like to ask through the chair to our CAO, is there a possible way to quantify? You know, our corporate officer is, you know, experiencing a staffing shortage and maximizing work. Is there a way to ask, okay, what is this? Is this a quarter of a PY, you know, for a time frame? Is one coordinator? Like I say, maybe we could fund, you know, a part-time person or something to be a coordinator or a student or somebody like that to help out. I'm not sure. Like. Okay.
Well, thank you.
How much will it cost? This
Well, I think, and thank you for that suggestion. I think what I'd like to suggest is we wait until our deputy clerk arrives. Interviews are happening today and tomorrow. We hope to have somebody in that chair soon, hopefully within a couple of weeks or a month. Then what I'd like to do is monitor the situation and see how the staffing levels ease out, or if they in fact do ease out. One of the things I'm thinking about currently, and it's part of my upcoming reports to Mayor and Council on a monthly basis, is where are we with our strategic priorities? What staff do we have attached to them? What budget do we have attached to them? And demonstrate to not just Mayor and Council, but our public, that our resources are really, really tight and that we're running a tight ship here at the district. I don't really want to start to add part-time positions until we really, as a leadership team, know where we're sitting. But I do appreciate the offer. I do think when it comes to our committee work and our volunteer work, that we cannot continue to expect staff's support on all of those things, because we have a mandate from Mayor and Council that's called a strategic plan. And if we get to a point, like Councillor Casper suggested earlier, that we're having to come forward to Mayor and Council and saying we're going to have to drop this priority because, you know, we just don't have enough staff to continue to support all of this external work. So that's where we're coming from, a staffing level. And I'm loath to actually come and ask for more staff at this point in time. What I would like to do is see how things settle out with respect to our committees, because our mayor and myself has had a conversation, very preliminary conversation with respect to committee work versus working group work and what's most appropriate for our community. So that conversation with the mayor is ongoing, and so I'd like to have an opportunity just to work through some of these issues and report back to council.
Go ahead.
And thank you for that, Ms. AAO. I guess the idea I was trying to come up with is, you know, how much does it take, you know, I mean, and perhaps our corporate officer could say, okay, how many hours did our people volunteer last year, or voluntold by the sound of what happened, so that we could say, okay, is this something that we could support from a funding point of view? I mean, I think we can come up with councillors, because I don't think we should lose communities in bloom. As a councillor sitting here, we've got to come up with a way to sort of make this work, because it's an important thing, and we've done a good job of it. And I thank you for your presentation and the work that you've done. But I also have to be respectful of the staff time as well. So it's kind of a balancing act for me. I don't know where that solution lies.
If I may, I'll defer to the corporate officer to inform Mayor and Council with respect to how many hours it took in 2014.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out, too, that I think it's a very good initiative. I've been in communities that have communities in bloom, and it's a great thing. But my staff report to me, it was 15 to 20 hours a week last year.
Okay, so for how many weeks? 15 to 20 hours per week?
At least 8 weeks.
For about 8 weeks. Oh, okay. I think we need to, okay.
Madam Chair, if I might suggest, I would suggest the communities in bloom come forward maybe with a detailed list of what they actually need, because we're kind of grasping at the air here, not really knowing how to give them an answer.
Okay, so let's, Councillor Parkinson.
The reason why we didn't come forward with a detailed outline was because there is a lot of work involved actually for the volunteers of the community as well. Last year there were 96, or the year before, 96 volunteers, businesses that participated in Communities in Bloom, along with, we had 80 volunteers working on different projects around town. So we don't want to go out and get everybody online if council is not going to support it, was the reason behind it. So if we have support, then we go out and we gather everybody. But if there is no support, then we probably wouldn't do it. Okay. And so and for staffing, what they did was they did the profile book, they did the book with the photographs in it, and they also did the tour for the town. And Laura also did a presentation for council and the committee upstairs here. And those were the 4 things. So that's what we wanted to see happen, was to have the profile book and those updated. I can't do it, so.
Councillor Ray?
I certainly support the idea of Communities in Bloom, and I'm just wondering if the committee could come back with a general requirement, and then I've known in the past years we haven't used a lot of our council contingency, and if we can have a sense of what the cost could be for what you would need, I would suggest that we do a contract out of the council contingency to make sure that this gets done.
Okay, so Mr. Joseph had suggested that staff work with the committee then, perhaps that you'll be looking to bring a report to us. So what sort of motion, because I'm hearing around the table that council is supportive of Communities in Blooms. We recognize that the impact on staff. We do have ongoing committee work that ties into our strategic plan, and some of it has come about from referendum questions and other priorities. So we do need to look at all of this at an upcoming time. But in the meantime, I think we'll need something from staff. So I think it can just refer back to staff and we'll see something.
Yes, you can just make a motion that staff work with the SPOT committee to develop a detailed list for Communities in Bloom and what they require.
Okay. Councillor Pearson, are you making a motion?
I'll make that motion. That
okay.
Whatever you said.
Second.
Great. Seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. Okay, so our next item is RA3, Category A grant, Police-Based Victim Services. And there is a report to council in your materials, along with a recommendation here that council approve a direct transfer of remaining 2015 Category A grant monies of $4,091.13 from the Souk Residents in Need Society to the Souk Transition House, and 2, the transfer of the Category A grant responsibilities for the Police-Based Victim Services Program from the Souk Residents in Need Society to the Souk Transition House. So moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Pearson. The report seemed pretty straightforward, but any comments or questions from council?
Nope, good that someone's taking it on.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Next up is RA4, the Western Canada Mountain Bike Tourism Association, the 2015-16 annual partner fees. So this came up a couple of years ago, whereby there was a decision made from the then Economic Development Commission to support the partnership fees. This launches a website that is geared towards tourism in mountain biking, and that also led to a symposium that covered off 3 days that really showcased and highlighted our area for riding. And so one of the things that came from this membership is there's a video that's updated that highlights the area here. We know the C2C and the Harborview area is opening up for ridership, and that's sort of what this was about. So I think there's just, in terms of where we go, was this an ongoing membership that council was looking to support? Was it one time? I know there was 1 year there was confusion, and I think the association gave us 2 years of membership for the price of one at that time. And it's just kind of sitting there. But for staff, it's not in anything. It's just floating. So we need to have some direction. So this is where, from council, is it something that we want to look at continuing to support or not? Councillor Pearson.
Well, I was confused when this came up because my recollection of this is that it was a one-time thing. I thought that's we signed an MOU that said we're going to sponsor it for 1 year to help them develop the video or something in this promotional thing. I was kind of confused where it was. It appears to be a 5-year plan. And I'm just going by my own memory because I couldn't find it. I looked back in the minutes and I was trying to find out where that came from.
I was looking for it as well because I thought that there was a motion that, I know that it's an annual membership. And it wasn't just a one time, and then because of where the invoice went, and just with where it was in the cycle, that's where that was the case. We hosted the symposium, I believe, in 2013, and that's where. And then when you look on the website, you see that different things change with the Bike Skills Park and the like. So it's an ongoing thing. It wasn't just one time. Councillor Ray. Then Logan.
Yes, thank you. And that was my recollection in terms of that was with the upcoming symposium. It was our way of showing our support for that symposium. I don't recall ever thinking that this was an ongoing long-term. So it came as it was a bit surprised, but yeah.
Councillor Logans?
I wasn't here.
No, you weren't.
But there's no reason why it can't be put forward for this year, I don't think, especially with the new, is it up Harbor View or something? The CRD is building new trails there to promote mountain biking tourism. I think it would be something, sport tourism in general is something that our area is definitely capable of promoting. So I think it would be fantastic to keep our membership with us and stay on top of the game.
Would you like to make that motion?
I will, thanks.
I'll second it. Okay, moved by Councillor Logans to support the annual partner fees, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Discussion on the motion, Councillor Ray, then Pearson, then Burton.
Yeah, I have some caution about getting into these partnerships over for particular special interest. I think they should come before the community grant process, as all the other groups do. So while I recognize it as certainly a great link to tourism and biking, my feeling is that we have a process through the community grant that we ask all of our special interest groups to use. So I won't be supporting it in terms of a partnership agreement.
Mr. Joseph?
Just a point of order, Madam Chair. Your current MOU continues until terminated by either party, so you wouldn't really need a motion per se to support that. I mean, you can give, only if you were going to really terminate, I think you would actually need a motion, because otherwise it will continue.
Okay, so then we need to look at amending. Okay, clarification for Councillor Logan.
I'm just wondering why it would be applicable to the grant review committee, since we did a similar thing for the that regional economic development group. It's more like a membership than it is a grant application.
If I can, I see this more specific to special interest groups, as we do with all of the ones that come in. The economic was a municipal joint venture with the private sector as well. I think the other concern I have is that if you terminate it, then it would be going beyond 5 years, and I didn't think we were able to do that either. So if it goes beyond 5 years, it's like a partnership is an agreement. It's a contract. So I don't think it can go past 5 years anyhow. So we must be getting close to the end of it.
So I just need to clarify something. So this was
2010.
Signed in 2010. I don't know when exactly. Okay. But I think Councillor Logan's motion is still valid in terms of if the partnership agreement is expired, is it in terms of supporting, we have to, because it then, okay, I need to just take a moment. Councillor Pearson, then.
I'm not opposed to sponsoring mountain bike in this. I'm just kind of concerned about the process here. It says that we signed an MOU in 2010, which would indicate to me that we would be in our 6th year of an agreement, which requires a public referendum, I think. That's kind of what I would like to make a motion that we have staff. Okay, sorry. I need some clarity before I can support that motion. This is unclear to me. Sorry.
Okay, so Councillor Casper, then Berger.
Where does it say that?
Yeah, my only concern is that it's a memorandum of understanding, but it also references partnerships, the community's responsibility, and the organization's responsibilities. And when you read items 1 through 8, they could prove to be pretty onerous. It's not just us giving a fee or paying a fee. There also could be some financial obligations that we may not really know what they could be. And as noted by the other speakers, to actually have a partnership agreement that can be terminated or basically run in perpetuity, it goes beyond our legislative authority. So this is one that really, just creeped up, and all the details are now being reviewed, right? I'd actually never seen the agreement, and if my mind's not correct here, I think this here was done by the council in 2012. It was brought forward, and I think when you were chairing, Madam Mayor, the Economic Development Group in 2012, and it was a recommendation that was brought forward by the Commission and for council to authorize the payment of the fee. But I don't recall us ever discussing the fact that by paying the fee, you actually had a partnership agreement. That was my understanding. So that's why this is new to me.
Yeah, and I tend to agree there because I thought it was a membership fee with the website and all those sorts of things. And actually, I do, when I look at the MOU, it's like, wow, we've really not done anything.
Great. And we did it.
So, I think we need to.
Could we refer?
I think the motion, in light of this, is not. It is. You're correct. We're sort of incorrect. So perhaps could we withdraw the motion?
Yeah.
Or we'll call the question on it, and then I think we need to.
But then if we called the question and everyone voted for it, then we would have to go to referendum.
Yes, and
so
I think
should we just remove. We should just.
Can you imagine?
Just not do
I would.
I would like to withdraw my motion.
Yes.
Is that okay with the seconder?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you need permission of council because it now belongs to the council body. To withdraw the motion that's been discussed, you need to withdraw with the permission of entire council.
Okay, so I think maybe we should just call the question. I kind of hear where council's going to go with this one.
Your motion still is out of order, though. Like it's a moot point.
Right.
So just.
I know,
yeah.
but just to clear it, and then we can move on. Okay, so I'll just call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Opposed unanimously? Okay, so I think.
Just move to referendum.
Okay, there's just, okay. So I think what we need to do is refer this back to staff. I think that we have, obviously for these reasons, perhaps, Mr. Joseph, you could contact the organizers and say, look, this is where we're at with this. Okay. And then have things change with the organization in terms of the fees and the like, and then have another conversation about this. Councillor Pearson?
Well, I think this
because
really...
The memorandum, I'm just sorry to interrupt, I'm just saying that the memorandum just seems to be still live, and we're going beyond what we are allowed to do procedurally.
So
Sorry, Councillor Berger.
So hopefully I could, through the chair to you, to Mr. Joseph, when you're talking to the Mountain Bike Association, this would appear to me to be more like a sponsorship or a grant application. I think we're going to hear from some sponsorship requests later tonight, and I think it's in line with that type of thing. I'm not opposed to it. I just kind of think that we've kind of got some housekeeping here that needs to be fixed up. Thank you.
Councillor Berger, I'm sorry I've missed you.
That's okay. I pretty much agree with what everyone has said, and I'm glad that we removed the motion that way, because even when you look in the memorandum of understanding, the agreement is between Souk and the Souk Bike Club. So right off the get-go, it doesn't really work for what this table does. We can't make decisions for the Souk Bike Club because we're not a part of the Souk Bike Club. So I agree that this is more of a sponsorship and it should go through the community grants. But I also think it belongs partly on the shoulders of Souk Region Tourism Association, as well as the CRD. When we talk about Harborview and the park up there, none of that's within our jurisdiction. So for me, I would like to see it go maybe a joint venture with the Tourism Association, maybe with the Wantafuco electoral area, seeing how it's in their jurisdiction as well. So I don't, there's a whole bunch of things that we need to work on this.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of housekeeping with this. Okay. Anything further, Mr. Joseph, that you need?
What I was going to suggest was that you actually move a motion just to end this, and
Okay.
then whatever you want to do going forward, you want to have one-year agreements, if you want to do sponsorship with community grants, whatever you want, then at least you can have, because this is just horrendous. It doesn't even have a date on it that I can see where the people signed.
No.
So, I mean, better that you just end this, and if you want to start something up brand new with the same organization, you'd be better set.
Okay, so I think if someone would like to put a motion forward to end the agreement, and once there's notice given to that entity, we can see what the current situation is and what sort of things have changed, obviously, since that time. Okay, is someone prepared to move that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Ray. Any discussion on the motion as posted? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, thank you. That was kind of difficult.
And they don't need, do they need some more direction?
No. He's going to, Mr. Joseph will now provide notice, and we'll just go from there. And perhaps if you could notify the Souk Bike Club as well,
Sure.
that notice, because they are on this agreement that this is happening.
And just further to that, if council wants us to investigate anything related to this matter as far as biking tourism, whatever it is, I mean, just make sure that you pass a motion to that effect so that staff actually has direction on it. Like ending this is no problem, but if people were interested, just because that wasn't clear, at least not that I got.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to happen tonight either, just.
Okay. We'll see what it may be the case when you end it that it'll trigger some correspondence. Okay? Councillor Pearson?
I'm just looking at the agenda, and there's a number of long-winded things in there. I think that we have a request for sponsorship, and I think the person is in the audience, has been sitting here for a long time. With council's permission, I'd like to see if we could move C1 sponsorship request to next in the agenda, if everybody. Okay.
Okay. Should have done that when we
Yeah.
actually approved the agenda.
I missed it. Sorry.
I appreciate the time and everything. Okay, so we're going to move now to C1, sponsorship request, Souk Saltwater Series 2016. All those in favor of moving to that item? Opposed? Okay, so C1, there's a sponsorship request. We have a piece of correspondence here, and my technology has failed.
Yeah, page 1 here. Do you want to read this? Here it is. It's right here.
Okay, so there is, I have a paper copy, thankfully.
And Mr. Niche is here.
Sorry, my microphone isn't on either. Okay, so we have an item here, and it's basically a request for $500 sponsorship from the District of Souk to the Souk Saltwater Series. Discussion from council? Mr. Nishi is in the room, if there's any questions of him.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Okay, so is the motion then is to
sorry.
approve the $500 sponsorship?
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any further discussion or questions on the motion? Councillor Pearson?
Could we ask Mr. Niche to come up? Because I have a couple of questions for him. I know you're applying for sponsorship. It's just kind of.
Yep.
And before I ask you a question, I apologize because I didn't see you at the back of the room when I looked at my agenda, sorry.
Good evening and welcome.
So through the chair to you, Mr. Nish, is this is in continuation of the same series that you ran last year? Have you been in contact with Mrs. Piers in the whole salmon festival thing that she's trying to institute this year or get going?
No, excuse me. No, I have not. I have heard about that program. And my understanding that it is Miss Pierce Salmon Festival is to happen in 2017.
Yes.
Is that not correct?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I have not been a part of that as of yet.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking is because I think it's a natural fit for you guys, or for the Charter Boat Association and whoever runs the saltwater series to be involved with that salmon festival as well, because there's a smoked salmon competition and things like that. I just wanted to put it out there as a suggestion to make sure that you're aware that's going on.
Yes, our committee's been in conversations about it. We have not yet met with Ms. Piers. We're under the understanding also that the Sauk Chamber of Commerce is looking at doing a salmon festival this year, 2016. Okay. And that has just been a rumor, if you will, as well. So okay. I haven't been officially asked to partake.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Logans?
I just have a question about this process, because it says in the letter here that there has been a grant application submitted, and because it is timely for the group, that's why they're coming here today to request the $500 sponsorship. So what precedent do we have for this? Can other groups who have timely events come forward and ask for sponsorship as well? I'm just not clear on that.
I think anyone could, but Councillor Ray, you are chair of that committee.
Yes, we have in the past, and I'm sorry, I'm not on the tip of my tongue. Can I recall which ones? But certainly when there have been decisions that are needed before an event, people are certainly invited to come before council and present, and we have done it in the past.
Councillor Casper?
Well, I think in this case that perhaps the wording, a grant application, may have been incorrect, because we had actually granted approval last year, and there was a similar note sent to council, and what had happened is that we had agreed to do a sponsorship, and that's what happened last year, correct?
That's correct. Last year there was a sponsorship.
So I think this is a continuation of that process where you're actually asking for a sponsorship as opposed to a grant.
A grant application has been made.
Right, but it was perhaps that's the wrong category, because earlier on this year there was a series of sponsorship approvals that council approved this year, and perhaps this would have been better off with that grouping. Am I right or wrong as far as staff?
May I just clarify, like in terms of the budget where we list off, there's a whole bunch in there?
Yes, of sponsorships.
Okay, and this was not in that list?
It was not in that list, because,
okay.
And I think because of probably because of the timeliness on it, and also the fact that they had specifically requested a grant. And maybe that's the confusion, because last year when you did receive money from us for $500, you came late, and we said, no, there's no grants, but we'll agree to do a sponsorship, because we were going to do an advertising, correct?
Correct.
And so that's fits our criteria as a sponsorship. And that's what you're asking for again, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so to me, I just think it's a case of doing a sponsorship.
Yes, so I think we'll call the question on the I'm going to call the question on the motion, and I have another piece for council. Okay.
Point of clarification.
Okay.
So if it's a sponsorship, does the grant application get removed?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of the sponsorship, opposed, carried unanimously. Okay, the next piece then is, this is a series as I understand. Okay, so should this then be added to our sponsorship list as an ongoing item, and then Mr. Nishi won't have to sit through these meetings unless, of course, you're always welcome to. We love having you here. But if this is an ongoing series, then perhaps it should be then a motion to staff that this now be included as an annual sponsorship in the budget, and then it will just come forward that way. Now, are there two different events? Because we had, like in the series, is it 500 for the year, or is it like 500 for this season and 500 for that season?
The sponsorship that was given last year was for the entire year. That was
Okay.
for the 2015 season.
Okay.
I'm currently here for the 2016 season
Okay.
sponsorship. The reason I had contacted mayor and council was in case our grant application had failed
Okay.
or was too late for
Got
the
it.
start of the season.
Okay.
And that's why I had come for a sponsorship.
Okay, I just needed clarity because I was sort of thinking like late winter, sort of halibut fishing, and that was that sort of series. And now we're getting into the spring and summer fishing, and it's a different series. So if it's 500 for the year, then perhaps if someone would like to make a motion then to add this to the budget as a line item.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor and Council.
So that's going to put us back to RI1, reports for information, Mayor and Council reports. I'll open that up to anyone. Councillor Parkinson?
So on March 22nd, I attended the emergency planning committee.
Microphone, please.
Sorry. On March 22nd, I attended the Emergency Planning Committee, and the notes are all in our package, but I just wanted to say that they have the Quake Cottage, which is a portable earthquake simulator, coming to Souk, and it's the first time it's going to be on Vancouver Island, and it's on Sunday, May 22nd, and it's a mobile living room. It's brought in from California, and it simulates 8 or 9 magnitude earthquakes. So you sit in there and they strap you into the couch and away you go. So it'll be out in front of the fire hall on that date. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then on March 23rd, I attended the SIG program for the Arts Committee. And you heard about the Communities in Bloom, but there was also discussions about the Mosaic project that's going on, and the submission deadline is April 14th. And we also had the committee visioning workshop part 2 with Danica, so it appears that we will be having part 3 as well. And then last night I attended the candle vigil for Constable Sarah Beckett in Langford, and they said that in attendance there were 3,000 people there last night. It was pretty moving and pretty impressive. Thank you.
Councillor Logans?
I've been pretty busy lately, so I haven't been to too much, but a lot coming up that I'd like to talk about. The first, well, I guess we did all recently, not all, but some of us recently attended AVICC, and that was great. Highlight, of course, was the work that our mayor did along with a few other folks to get that motion put forward to UBCM, so hopefully that will be successful there as well. So coming up this week, we also will be attending Constable Sarah Beckett's memorial tomorrow. And then on Saturday, there's the Business Excellence Awards with the Souk Chamber of Commerce. Sunday, also, the Zero Waste Souk project will be doing some research from 10 to 3 or 4, I believe, as well. So those are some worthwhile things to attend. And then we also have 10,000 Tonight, the spring version, happening on the 21st, which is a Thursday. So please, if you have any canned goods, non-perishables, have them ready for the 21st for collection. And speaking of people coming door to door, the census will be beginning soon too.
Thank you, Councillor Logans. Councillor Casper?
Yeah, I think just since the last report, I had attended a number of meetings of the CRD, those including the Planning and Transportation Protective Services, the Environment Committee. Also, one that would be of your interest, I know, and that's the Special Task Force regarding First Nations. And we are actually working on a project that I think would excite all of the members, member councils within the capital region. We're going to prepare a recommendation and a report to the CRD that will actually assist in embracing the whole concept of reconciliation in regard to First Nations and a coming together of all the elected officials and representatives from the First Nations communities and their elected members. So, we're just in the preliminary planning stages on that. We had our first meeting, so there will in fact be some additional information put together and a package to go to the CRD board on that. So it should be of interest. The other thing is there's another regional board meeting this coming Wednesday, and plus all the other committees that I've attended to and signed up for. So anyway, it's been, like as you indicated, that it has been a busy 5 months, and I'm sure it's going to continue to be busy, and I appreciate the confidence. Thank you very much.
Councillor Pearson?
Okay, thank you. I attended the Wanapeka Water Commission on April 5th.
Microphone.
Sorry. On April 5th, I attended the Wanapeka Water Commission. The couple of projects, the 2016 projects that are in the fire flow list for us are the Grant Henlin, Winfield to Cedarbrook, Otter Point Road Crossing Hydrant. The designs are all complete. Eakin Drive, Cedar Ridge to Pine Ridge, the design is complete. The AM Creek fire flow, it says that it's complete, but I actually noticed today when I came home that looked like there was still some equipment down there at AM Creek Crossing. The Wanapeka Water Commission is very busy planning and preparing all their budgets. Of particular note to us that will interest us is the Kemp Lake Water Extension. The grant application will go in again by the end of April. They're preparing that grant right now. Our grant that or our request for DCCs to extend up Otter Point, that will be prepared by staff somewhere late fall this year. So we should hear about that, and that's a motion that we made and a request there. Going back to the Kemp Lake Water Extension, VHA is watching very, very detailing of what's happening. This is not something that should happen. It has to happen, is basically VHA's position. So the Kemp Lake water system, which operates on its own, will probably be going on their own if they're not successful for a grant. So the Water Commission is hopeful, and that will extend through our boundary, likely West Coast Road, from about Aranan subdivision out to where the last the fire stand is on West Coast Road, somewhere around, and I say by Dr. Veazey's house, but that's where the connection is. So we would actually, that water would pass through Souk, which would again then, there would be connection fees and things for those upland properties. But again, it's expected that it's a top priority project. So.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Ray?
Thank you. I attended the Vancouver Island Library Board meeting in March. It was a good meeting. The Library Board has reduced in its budget the increase for this year, so that was pleased to see that. And of course, just watching all of the facilities coming online in terms of priorities. Of course, Souk is at the top of that list. And I attended AVICC along with a number of council and Mayor Tate. and quite an interesting experience, as was brought up by Councillor Logans earlier, just watching everybody coming together unanimously at that AVICC in support of women and mothers and in politics. So that was really good. And attended a couple of interesting sessions on conflict, and it was good to network as always. And also our CAO was there as well, so I think it was a good opportunity to have a good contingent there.
Thank you, Councillor Ray. Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick note that City Park is still doing their public info sessions for the referendum question on the proposed land purchase. There was one tonight at the East Loop Fire Hall, and then the last one will be next Monday, the 18th, at City Park from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Great, thank you. Okay, just some final comments for myself. I was able to tour Wild Art last week. I'd been there, I think, maybe six or 7 years ago, I think. So it was before the aquatic, before the water came in. I wasn't able to stay for the whole thing, but it was great to be at the facility and to see Sooke is still number 3, I believe, in terms of animals being brought in. But you could see where I think the education is important, particularly as we go ahead with the fawns coming out, because often people pick up the fawns and bring them where they should be left alone. And then I think, so there's a lot of awareness around that, but it's always interesting to tour and to be at that facility, and just, there was a lot of conversation as to why saving an animal that we deem to be a Canada goose, that we've just increased the hunting licenses or whatever, but it's because it's non-discriminatory and things change. These animals are impacted because of our impact on them. So I think it's a good philosophy, and I truly value the work that's being done there. We were also in Metchosin for the expo that saw the 4th graders every year come out for training, and the Lieutenant Governor was present at that event as well, so that was exciting. We've heard about AVICC. Just the highlights that I'd like to share there is that a mayor's caucus has formed. So I attended that, and it's all island mayors, and it's determining what issues are island-based and which ones should go to UBCM for support. So which ones do we advocate for and which ones are more provincial. And sometimes it's a case of just getting support from another jurisdiction. So there may be more interior-related issues that the interior municipalities are lobbying for. We wish to offer their support, even though we're not impacted on them. Some, though, some things that are going forward, though, is Mayor Ryan Windsor of Central Saanich is sort of our representative there, as well as Mayor Andy Adams, I believe, from Campbell River. But some items that were sort of raised as to go forward to the province are physician recruitment and increasing the practitioners. That's something that it seems everyone but Campbell River is having challenges with. The other ones were the changes with the RCMP, the removal of the auxiliary, and how that is going to impact the forces in terms of their ability to provide service. For the marijuana dispensary, clarity from the feds and the province in terms of what is their vision for that and how are the two going to work together. Drinking water and watersheds. A particular island one is the derelict vessels. That obviously impacts us here on the coast, and looking to the Washington State model. Going back to the RCMP, there are a few mayors working on this now, so there is going to be reports on that. So it may not go to there's a mayor's caucus provincially held on May, so this may not be ready in time, but it is something that they are working on. Homelessness is another one. In particular, it impacting Victoria with the tent city and the Supreme Court decision. And that was sort of it at the moment. And the other thing was sort of pushing for an integrity commissioner or an ethics commission to be formed by the province. They were quick to put in an audit like an auditor to audit municipal spending that we've sort of seen sort of crumble and fall apart. But this is in terms of where there's gaps in legislation, in terms of where it falls. So it doesn't seem to fall in the Ombudsman's office. It doesn't seem to fall here. So because we're deemed to be creatures of the province, it's the establishment of a specific commission. So that was sort of a snapshot of what that looked like, and then there'll be others to come from that. A couple of things that are coming up in your budget deliberations. Councillor Ray kindly put forward the support for the Primary Health Working Services Group. So you've all seen this acronym appear on your budget in the amount of $5,000. And so it's the case of what exactly are you supporting here. So I just wanted to give you just some highlights on that. This all started under Mayor Milne's time, and he put together the GP for Me, and then had, back in December of 2013, another forum called the Primary Healthcare Forum was held in November, and then there was reporting back from that again. So it's advancing this or continuing on with this work. And so coming up in May, it's leading us to the Health Summit, which will take place on Saturday, May 28th from 1 to 4. The working title is Healthy Together, Community Conversations on Assets, Actions, and Advocacy. So some of it is to highlight all the work that's done, but to also say, okay, here's our findings. When I was away, you had a report from the X-ray and the whole X-ray study. That was all an initiative under this working group, and to see and to sort of show where that's at. So there is the $5,000 in the special services of the budget. And so what I would like to do is just invite anyone that's interested. There's going to be a whole host of people from Island Health, from just sort of everyone in the context of health, doctors, physicians. There's quite a list at this forum. We are looking for some facilitators, so I'd just like to invite any member of council, if you are interested in facilitating a session of this or being involved that day, if you could please let me know, and I'll connect you back with the group. So that's sort of coming forward, and we have a long list, and it's just to see, here are sort of the emerging priorities from this group, and it's to check in with the community and to identify, okay, are there any further gaps missing, so that when we lobby, because I have met with John Horgan, our MLA, to say this is what's happening. I have put forward reports to the Capital Region Hospital Board saying, look, you know, we are part of the region here. These are some gaps that are occurring, and it's just to continue on with that dialogue. So that's what that is for. That is on May 28th from 1 to 4, and it's at the community hall. And so that is sort of what you've improved in principle. So thank you for that. There is also a forum coming up. It's the Island Region Healthy Communities Forum. It's in Parksville from April 21st and 22nd. Funding has been obtained for travel and accommodation through the Community Health Network, and the whole intent is multiple sessions to learn, share, build collaborative strategies for upstream action for healthy communities. And the invite list is local government and First Nations staff and elected officials, community partners, Island Health. So I had sort of looked at going, but I'm not able to attend now. But the funding is still there. So I'm wondering if there is anyone here that would like to attend this forum up in Parksville on April 21st and 22nd. So it is coming up quickly. So give it some thought. I can email you the link if you want more information. And we'll just sort of leave it at that. There is also another symposium, but I see that that is included in here under the correspondence for information piece. So we'll get to that section later. But otherwise, thank you for your patience. This meeting seems a bit long, but the wheels are just sort of slowly turning again. Councillor Sullivan, or pardon me, point of order, Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you. I'd just like to provide a very brief CAO update, if you don't mind. I'm happy to announce that the Chamber now has Wi-Fi accessibility for our public so that they can use their technology to access our agendas and our reports. So it should cut down on a little bit of paper that we've been, chewing up some trees for quite some time. So I'm pleased about that. We also have our TV screens coming in chambers within the next 4 weeks or so. We're going to have a TV screen over here, a TV screen over here, and one in front here for mayor and council, that they don't have to start looking this way and crooking their necks and everything else. It's going to be very helpful. Like I think, I can't remember, I think it was Councillor Casper said that it was very helpful having the motions on the screen here. It's going to be even more helpful for the people who are watching from home to be able to see them on the screens in front of us. So I'm thrilled that that's happening, and we are taking a look at some options to improve our speaker system, because it's still quite difficult to hear when you're on the podcast. And so I've asked our acting corporate officer to take a look into various options that could improve the situation here.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? Councillor Pearson, Parkinson?
Yeah, and this, I don't know if this is the right time, but to the CAO. The ventilation that's here, every once in a while, I get secondhand smoke comes out of this one here or wherever it comes from, right? And I don't know, it's somebody smoking near the intake or whatever. Anyways, I don't know. Kind of.
Yeah, I do believe that there is smoking that's happening outside the intake, but also we're having people take a look at not only the HVAC system, but the fruit flies and the bugs that seem to be dropping down on various councillors' desks. Part of the problem. Part of the problem is because that we have moss on the roof of this building, and I was told today by our acting corporate officer that moss breeds bugs, and the bugs tend to go into our HVAC system and kind of come through our air quality that way. Yeah, it is kind of nasty. So we've asked our building maintenance contractor to get on top of the moss on the roof to see if that helps with the bug situation. But also we need to take a look at putting some signage up around where the intake valve is and ask people not to smoke there.
Okay. It's every once in a while it happens here when we're sitting here. It comes in here.
Okay. So we're going to move on then into correspondence requiring action.
Oh, yeah, there's alternate housing forum.
Oh, pardon me. I'm sorry. R12. Alternate housing forum. Councillor Casper is going to be brief.
Yes, I'll be very brief, I promise. So the reason I asked that this be on the agenda, and it's a follow-up between correspondence or email that I sent you last year, Your Worship, and it was the idea of we all talk about affordable housing, and everybody seems to be going to conferences and seminars, and we talk about affordable housing. I don't think anybody has put together any conversation around alternate housing. And what I mean by that is that it's an opportunity for leaders from the private sector and the public sector organizations who currently deliver housing options, both privately owned and also for rental purposes. And the other possibility is that there could be presentations which would include innovative approaches that municipalities have done to provide alternate forms of housing types that would create or assist in creating more affordable housing options. And what I mean by that is that there are opportunities where if you take a look at the current minimum sizes that our zoning bylaws require for square footage for a dwelling unit, they're quite substantial in size. And some jurisdictions, and if you've ever been to IKEA, they actually have I don't mean to promote them, but they actually have within their displays a housing unit that is 275 square feet. And it has a kitchen, a bathroom, a living area, and a dining area, and a sleeping area. And it's a very, it's actually quite eye-opening as to how much can fit into that size. So what I was hoping is that, and I don't mean to utilize staff time and take up valuable staff time, but if council is willing, that we could ask staff to investigate the feasibility of the District of Sault to host an alternative housing forum, which would give us an opportunity to perhaps show off some of the things that we've done in our community to other jurisdictions in regard to the small lots that we have, the tent lots, the issues that both we've wrestled with for duplexes and for small lot sizes in some of our subdivisions. Yes, some of these things are good for affordability, but sometimes you have some problems too. So it's a good idea to showcase the good and the bad. But I think there are some things that are being done south of the border and in other parts of the province. And I don't mean to use this as an example that we should embrace, but there's the issue of utilizing storage containers for housing. I've been to conferences where these, the large storing containers, the 40-foot ones, actually have been totally outfitted, and you would think that you were in a one-bedroom studio, and you wouldn't have known the difference once you're inside. And they accommodate windows, etc. So that's just one example. Whistler actually made provision and allowed for that for some housing issues for staff in the Whistler area. So I apologize for taking too long. So I do have a motion. Oh, there it is already. That's great. Anyway, I'm prepared to make that motion. And I don't really want to encourage a lot of staff time. I would work closely with the staff to put together a feasibility package. It's not like they're going to do all the work.
I think another, and it could also sort of evolve into one of the working groups, kind of like the primary health one, and then you're actually putting it out and engaging. The work would sort of more shift to the development community in this regard.
Well, that's
which
right.
is where it should sit. So there may be some
ideas there, right?
ideas there that could form this. So, okay, Councillor Logans, you were going to speak to the motion?
I was just going to say that this is the exact kind of thing that I was hoping would come forward after proposing the conference funding in the budget. It's great to hear, especially after the Vital Signs report, when you hear housing is a top issue. There are many issues that we can bring forward and use those funds to find some solutions for. So okay. I will support that.
And it's also timely. I was watching some TV on my mat leave, and there's all these tiny house hunters and tiny house this and tiny house that, and moving these tiny houses. So it's clearly, it's good timing for this. Okay, I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. Thank you for bringing that forward. So that brings us to item C2, correspondence requiring action. It's correspondence received March 22nd, 2016 from Rupert and Franny Yakulashek, the Federal Bill of Environmental Rights. You may recall that there was a presentation last year. And so I think it's a motion. It looks like an update to me. Move receipt from Councillor Berger, seconded by Councillor Logans. The one thing I would do, I think, is we would like to respond. This came through to info. So I think, I'd like to send a report back or a response back from council. Would you like to do that, or do you just want to receive it?
Well, we could lend support, if it's...
Yeah.
It's a repeat or it's a reiteration of what was passed before or something.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where the ask here actually is for you, Councillor Casper, as you're attending the FCM conference.
Yes.
So there'll likely be a resolution. So I think that's the ask, if you could take that forward.
Yes.
And then staff, if you could please just respond to the email, because it went to info. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And the next one is I-1. We have correspondence for information. This is a symposium on land-based spill preparedness and response in BC. This one is in Richmond on April 20th and 21st. So it's a workshop there. I had attended something similar last year that was held here, hosted by the South Nation. And then again at AVICC, there's been numerous workshops. So, Councillor Casper?
Yeah, you had asked me if I could attend, and I did say I could attend for most of it, but
yes.
I have other commitments during the day, and then I'd go in the afternoon. Now, I think our staff had actually made some arrangements for me to go there in the afternoon. I did make some initial inquiries, and I think a lot of this will also be related to possibly some land-based spill issues too. So,
Okay.
And it may be appropriate. I don't necessarily have to go, but if there are other members who can find the time to go, then I would encourage them to do it.
Yeah, I was just a bit, I sent it to you to see if you could attend as acting mayor, but then I wasn't sure if.
Well, I can do it.
Okay.
I've already made the arrangements, and I think
Okay.
staff have already done that. But
Okay. Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Ms.
so-
Sullivan?
I'd just like to inform Mayor and Council that I will be attending this as well, and I can report back for those sessions that Councillor Casper cannot attend.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so what I would like, though, is because this is outside of our remuneration bylaw, where that outlines what mayor and council attend for conferences, so perhaps if we could just have a resolution sort of approving that Councillor Casper attend this workshop. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Logans. Any questions about this? Would anyone else like to go?
Yeah, and could I just give council members some comfort? Because of the number of people that signed up for conferences for the entire year and what's actually going to be happening, there will be actually less money spent this year than what's being budgeted for. So I just want to give you comfort.
Yeah, we are going to fall well within that, absolutely. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously, and I think that brings us to a motion to close the meeting to the public to go in camera, subject to Section 91C, E, and K. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Councillor Berger, seconded by Councillor Casper. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We'll just take a short break while we clear the room and switch.